Hi guys, welcome back to Watch the Obsession live stream and chat. And tonight we are talking about the Bryan Kohberger pretrial proceedings and what happened at that court hearing that had been scheduled for a while today, June 27th, 2023. So I'm just going to play to start a little bit of a video that I uploaded earlier, and I was asking some questions that I was thinking about and you all posed after our last live stream. What I thought was interesting was right after I made this video and uploaded it, I watched the court hearing, and I think that some of the questions that I had in my mind that you guys all put forth during the last live stream or in comments in response to the live stream if you watch the replay were answered in part by what was said by Ann Taylor or the judge in the court hearing today, but sometimes it was in a surprising way. So let's get started. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you for being here. Subscribers, members, moderators, all of you that are live, please join in the chat, feel comfortable. And all of you watching the replay, thanks for being here too. This is Kelly from Watch the Obsession. Thanks for taking time to watch this video. Please click like and subscribe and hit the bell for future notifications.
In the documents obtained by Fox News, the subpoena demands one of the surviving roommates, Bethany Funk, appear in court in June to testify at Bryan Kohberger's preliminary hearing. This is not the roommate who witnessed a masked man in their home the morning four of her friends were murdered, but a second roommate who told police she was in the basement at the time and never went upstairs.
After the channel's most recent live stream, I was thinking about this. The amount of information that the defense team, Bryan Kohberger's defense team, led by Ann Taylor, has managed to get out to the public, to the masses, to potential jurors in the midst of a strict and broad gag order that has been in effect since January 5th, 2023. Before we get into the rest of this video, I just want to acknowledge the victims and their families. The victims, Kelly Gonsalves, Madison Mogan, Ethan Chapin, and Xana Granodal. May we find justice for them and peace for the families. And then I was also thinking about this, which is a statement I read a couple times during the live stream that is from the defense's objection to the state's motion for a protective order regarding some of the DNA evidence, and particularly investigative genealogy DNA evidence. So the statement reads, no matter what came first, the car or genetic genealogy, the investigation has provided precious little. There is no connection between Mr. Kohberger and the victims. There is no explanation for the total lack of DNA evidence from the victims in Mr. Kohberger's car, office, apartment, home, or vehicle. So what exactly does that mean? When I first read that statement, or when I was first thinking about that statement, I was wondering, oh my gosh, does that mean that there is literally no evidence from the victims in Kohberger's apartment, office, car, or his space anywhere that they have investigated? But then I thought about the show that the defense has been putting on ever since the pretrial proceedings for this case have started. And that is, of course, as far as we know, because many people close to this case are under that broad and very strict gag order. So let's think about one of the first times that we heard from the defense in a big way and a way that made headlines. And that was the defense's motion to compel Bethany Funk to testify at the pre-trial hearing. So what was the defense's reason for compelling her to testify in that pre-trial hearing? Well, according to what they had to say, it was because Bethany Funk had exculpatory evidence that could, well, by the definition of exculpatory evidence, they're saying that could exonerate Bryan Kohberger. Exculpatory evidence is evidence that shows that somebody is not guilty of the crime for which they are charged. So let's go ahead and take a look at that motion to compel Bethany Funk's testimony at the pre-trial hearing and see exactly what it has to say. So here this says, well, the person who is authoring this document introduces himself as an investigator that was retained by the defense for Bryan Kohberger. And I'm starting here at line 7. It says, Bethany Funk's bedroom was on the first floor. The other surviving roommate's bedroom was on the second floor. Bethany Funk was interviewed by police on several occasions. She disclosed things she heard and things she saw. Bethany Funk was present at the home 8 hours later when police were called, arrived on scene, and discovered the homicides. The statement in the document goes on to say, during the course of my investigation, it became known to me that Bethany Funk has information material to charges against Mr. Kohberger. Portions of information Ms. Funk has is exculpatory to the defendant. Ms. Funk's information is unique to her experience and cannot be provided by another witness. So, in my opinion, much of the statement within this document by the investigator certainly is true. Bethany Funk was interviewed by officials. She heard and saw things. She told them about things that she heard and that she saw. And of course, her experience is unique to herself.
So, what exactly could this exculpatory evidence be that the defense is continuing to allude to? Now, understand that the defense is under ethical guidelines that, according to the oath that they've taken to be an officer of the law, to be a member of the American Bar Association, they can't just throw out statements that are baseless, that don't have any foundation in fact or any kind of evidence that they are aware of. So for the defense to say that they believe that a certain witness has exculpatory evidence, it's under the scrutiny of the court eventually, if they choose for it to be under their scrutiny, to test the validity of the statement, at least the knowledge that the defense attorney had in making that statement at that time. So Ann Taylor is well aware that she is representing a defendant in a very high profile case, and she has an exceptional trial record history, which is one reason she is a defense attorney for Bryan Kohberger. So unless she's going to put everything on the line, unless she's going to put this trial on the line and her career as an attorney on the line, we have to believe that Ann Taylor has a good faith reason to assert that she believes Bethany Funk might have, or she says has, evidence that may be exculpatory to Bryan Kohberger's guilt. So I'm not an attorney, but our YouTube friend, the lawyer you know, is. So, hey, if you haven't subscribed to his channel, it's a great channel with analysis of all of the true crime cases you follow. So definitely check it out. But here is what Peter Tragos, the lawyer you know, has to say about what I was just commenting on.
One of the things about being a lawyer and litigating cases is you have to know how to use leverage and use the tools in your toolbox. And when you feel like you have something, you have to use it appropriately and ethically in order to get what you want or need in a case.
So where does that leave us as far as what the defense has been doing with the amount of information that they have gotten out to the public and therefore potential jurors in the midst of a strict and broad gag order?
Okay, so I'm going to stop there because some of the questions that I was posing, again, were answered in part and sometimes in some surprising ways during today's hearing. Now, that video, if you want to catch the whole thing, I just uploaded this afternoon. It just goes on to talk about the ethical issues of both the defense and the state's case in what they are presenting. So, you know, for us to say, you know, these attorneys are professionals, right? And there's a lot at risk when they are defending their side, when they are making their case. And not only is the outcome of the trial at risk, but their professional license is at risk. If they are sanctioned, they need to self-report that sanction, or worse, a court-reported sanction. And if you have enough of those, it can put you at risk of your license with the American Bar Association here in the United States, which is usually the licensing agency that holds the license for these attorneys to practice. So we have to keep that in mind as we are thinking about all of these things. We're going to go into the court hearing in just a moment here. I just want to play, I didn't watch this yet, but just a little summary reaction from a channel. Can't remember what it was. Oh, unless I can't find it. I was reading this article from The Independent. I think this is going to do it. Let's see. There we go. Okay.
In the murder of 4 University of Idaho students was back in court today, a few months before his murder trial is scheduled to begin.
Bryan Kohberger and his defense team appeared alongside prosecutors and the family lawyer of one of the victims, Kaylee Gonsalves. Fox's Jake Karalexis was in the courtroom and joins us live from Moscow, Idaho. Jake, what happened during the hearing?
Courtney and Tom, Shannon Gray, the lawyer for Kaylee Gonsalves' family, asked the judge to lift a gag order that's prevented the family from speaking publicly about the case. Gray told the judge that the gag order has prevented the Gonsalves family from getting up-to-date information on the investigation and that it should be lifted if they're going to be witnesses for the case.
I have not seen a poorer line of communication in my 22 years of practicing than the prosecution's office and the Gonsalves family. And I think it stems from, initially, we were critical of the investigation.
The prosecution pushed back, saying they've answered what they can and they need to avoid hurting the integrity of the investigation.
To take affirmative steps to address the impacts that intense pretrial publicity can have on the case. An order like the one in this case is an appropriate measure for addressing that duty of the court.
And we didn't hear much from Kohberger's team, but he was dressed in a suit and tie for this hearing instead of the usual orange jumpsuit. Latah County Judge John Judge did not issue a decision today, so the gag order stays in place for now. And there was a second hearing involving Kohberger this afternoon. His defense team wants cameras banned from the courtroom for the rest of the proceedings against him. In Moscow, Idaho, Jake Karalexis, Fox 5 News.
All right, Jake, thanks for the latest. Still ahead.
Okay, so who actually watched the court proceedings?
Aesthetics are an important part of how I work. My name is Marisol Jaga.
Okay, so who actually watched the court proceedings today? Did you guys watch this already, or have you watched highlights of it or anything like that? Because we're going to go through it. I think the court proceedings in the entirety, if you're not watching a channel that has like the breaks and the advertisements and all that, is, I can tell you exactly how long. It appears to be 28 minutes. Is that right? That's the feed that I have from Law and Crime Network. Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's like the belly of it. So who's watched that today already? Are you guys like watching it again and again? Just can't get enough? It's the only official, thing that's happened in this case in a really long time. Watched it and it was hard to hear. Yeah. I worked on the audio a little bit. I hope you can hear it. I'm glad that you said that. And welcome, by the way. And Suam, am I saying that right? I've seen you commenting on videos and stuff. Welcome to the channel and thanks for being here. Might just be better to read through the Twitter highlights. Yeah. Ara says, BK is overshadowing the actual victims. It's infuriating. So let's remember the reason we are here, and it's for justice for Kaylee, Madison, Ethan, and Xana, and peace for their families. I know what you're saying. You saw it? Okay, cool.
So you know what, Rockaways, and hey, the Rockaways, it's great to see you. I'm so happy you're here. Let me get started just playing the court proceedings. There's a couple things I want to point out in the beginning and give me some feedback on how the audio is, and I'll see if I can get kind of like a highlight feed or reel ready. If anyone has any suggestions of what they would like that to be, go ahead and let me know. I'm open to suggestions, but I have a couple too. Yeah, this is okay. I'm just going to play. I'm not trying to be, I take this very seriously. This is obviously a matter of extreme seriousness and importance in what happens in this case. It's important to the victims. It's important to the families. It's critical. It's everything to those people. It's important to our justice system. And it's important, you know, is how we react as a society. I think all of these things are critical. So please understand that I'm not making fun of anything, but I just have to, the way that they walked in, I'm going to play it in slow motion because this is like how I saw it, even when I was watching it in, you know, regular speed. It was just seemed so dramatic to me. Maybe your point, Ara, you know, that we're overshadowing the actual victims, right? So. Okay, so here's the defense team and Mr. Kohberger walking in slow motion. Doesn't it almost feel like they're all bouncing on stage? Like people, this is how I saw it in my mind's eye, you know, like introducing the cast or, you know, like the football players run out. It's just how I felt. It was, maybe it's just because the cameras are there, but it felt like it's a little bit of a show. And look at that guy. I don't know. I just catch like the look in this man's eye sometime. And I don't know. For me, that is a significant, a decent, not significant, but that when I consider whether Bryan Kohberger could possibly not be guilty, when I look at him, when I look at some of his nonverbal indicators from a behavioral analyst perspective, but just when I look into his eyes, just the darkness that's there, to me, it just, you know, says he's guilty. Like he's the kind of person, I don't know. We'll talk about this afterwards. Oop, I got to take it off slow motion here. Okay.
All rise. Thank you very much. Please be seated. Good afternoon, everybody. Okay, let's get on the record, please.
Thank you.
Okay, we're on the record. This is State of Idaho versus Bryan Kohberger, case number CR 29222805. Mr. Kohberger is in the court. He is represented by Ms. Taylor, Mr. Lobston, and Ms. Massett. The state is represented by Mr. Thompson and Ms. Jennings, also Mr. Nye and Ms. Beatty. And we're here for some motions, discussions. And before we get there, I want to address, I mean, really everybody about the revised amended dissemination order. Apparently there's some misunderstanding about who it applies to and who it doesn't apply to, because what I thought, and this is 100% my responsibility, I used the term agents, and the revised order says that the prosecuting attorneys, defense attorneys, any agents of the prosecuting attorneys and defense attorneys are affected by this order. Apparently, some of the media interpreted that as it doesn't apply to law enforcement, but it does. So law enforcement is, they are agents of the prosecuting attorneys. Now, I'm going to issue another order, another revised order, just to make sure that that is clear, because people seem to be very confused about that. Agent, definition of an agent is one that acts or has the power or authority to act. Another definition is one empowered to act for or represent another. So I'm going to include law enforcement for the prosecuting attorney's agents, and for the defense attorneys, investigators. So it's clear. I think it's sort of doubling down on the definition, but apparently that's necessary. I'm also going to add retained expert witnesses for each side because we don't want to have a trial in the media or in the public. We want it to be in the courtroom. Speaking of that, a comment on the cameras. They're in the courtroom now. And I have deferred my decision about cameras. One of the things that's going to be really important, that is very important, is that the people with the camera and media need to follow the rules. And we've had some issues where people were pushing the envelope, particularly focusing on the tables where counsel sits. You are not to turn your cameras toward the top of those tables. And if you do that, you're probably going to have to leave the courtroom. Also, one of the things that happened in the Daybell case is that the cameras just continue to focus on the defendant. Don't do that. That's what brought the cameras to have to leave the courtroom in that case. And what I would prefer, if you want to continue to have cameras in this courtroom, is to back off and not. Do we have that? Yeah, make sure that's muted. Make sure that we just have the totality of what is happening in the court, and not just focus, for example, on Mr. Kohberger's face. So that was what happened in that case, and it's not appropriate.
I just want to play that last couple seconds a little bit. So this is a judge directing the people who are going to be working the cameras on how the cameras should be operating within his courtroom. And he has every right to do that. It is his courtroom. It is his court. It is his jurisdiction. It is his decision. He is the judge. So I just want to get, the reaction from, if anyone has a reaction of what he says about how the cameras should be operated and should function in the courtroom. Oh yeah, everybody, please hit that like. If you haven't done so yet, please go hit the like. It just helps out the channel. I really appreciate the support, and go hit the like. Okay. Judge, go hit that like button.
Continue to focus on the defendant, top of those tables. And if you do that, you're probably going to have to leave the courtroom. Also, one of the things that happened in the Daybell case is that the cameras just continue to focus on the defendant. Don't do that. That's what brought the cameras to have to leave the courtroom in that case. And what I would prefer, if you want to continue to have cameras in this courtroom, is to back off and not, do we have that? Yeah, make sure that's muted. Make sure that we just have the totality of what is happening in the court, and not just focus, for example, on Mr. Kohberger's face. So that was what happened in that case, and it's not.
So did any of you have any reaction to that judge's directions on how the camera should be operating in the courtroom? And I just want to read a couple comments and then we'll continue. Now, Teresa, I'm very sorry that you had this experience and that you had this loss. I hope it's okay that I read this out loud. I had to sit as a victim in a trial. My brother-in-law was made unalive. Two people, one pled guilty, the other decided to go to trial. During proceedings, he wouldn't look up. It's interesting. So very interesting. And that's interesting. And thank you for sharing that. I'm very sorry you had that experience. Very sorry you had that experience. Lump Larry. Hey, Lump Larry, what's up? Says he's not that good. He's not guilty. He's not that good. I don't know. I don't necessarily see it as being good. I just see it as being like a maniac. Like whatever happened was, just an out of control, clearly psychopathic maniac at work. And we don't know yet. We can't really make the determination yet whether he's that good or not that good, because we still do not know, a really large portion of the evidence, or we don't know the details of it. But I hear what you're saying though, but yeah. And crap, there was something I wanted. Oh, Rockaways said earlier, and I just want to bring this here. Really great point. Rockaways, you always make great points. Said, I suspect Bryan used a chemical to destroy any DNA in his car. I still wonder if it tested positive for blood without any DNA markers. Now, I also heard some of you, or I read that some of you were commenting on the, that statement that was in the defense's objection to the motion for the protective order for some of the DNA, the investigative genealogical DNA evidence. And that statement that, there was no evidence of DNA from the victims in Bryan Kohberger's apartment, office, car, or home, or whatever that said exactly. Now, I think that Ann Taylor during this hearing speaks to that a little bit. I was so alarmed when I first read that with a literal reading, like, oh my goodness, she having evidence that would tell her that that connection exists or not is saying that there is absolutely no connection. But I don't think she has that evidence. I think she is saying, I don't have that evidence that would make that connection to determine for myself with my own mind upon my own reading if that connection does exist. But Rockaways makes kind of a nuanced point here that even if, like, say, they went through the car and they found no connecting DNA evidence in the car, that would be very upsetting to me, because I think that that was really going to be like the juggernaut, the linchpin, the thing that does it. But there still could be evidence of blood being in the car, for example, without any DNA markers. So it made me think of that statement that there wasn't any of the victim's DNA in Bryan Kohberger's yada, 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 connecting him to the crime. But we have to think, even if that DNA does not exist, and I hope it does, just for the sake of, a smooth court proceedings and a clear determination of guilt or innocence, and not wasting taxpayer dollars on the appellate process. But even if that DNA evidence wasn't there, there still could be things like they still could have found blood, but without the DNA marker. So I think this is a really good point, Rockaways. Thank you for bringing that up. You're always thinking well, in my opinion. All right. And the Rockaways also says, it's just caught my eye again. We also have evidence of him cleaning his car like a maniac. The arresting officers witnessed it. And yes, that is true. I know in the last live stream, DC Primetime, we were talking about the fact that he used bleach. So as we were talking about it, I was kind of just like making a note of it in my mind. Like that's what I had in my mind, but then I was questioning it because I wasn't sure if that was actually a fact. I could not find anywhere a statement from Investigator saying definitively that he was using bleach. But I just want to make that correction. But if I'm wrong, somebody let me know, and I'll tell you he was using bleach.
It's not appropriate. One other reminder to council to speak, and this is to myself, to speak into the microphone so we can have a good record. All right, I think those are my general announcements or cautions. And I think we've sort of boiled things down to some issues on the motion to compel discovery. Some of those issues have been resolved, some have not. So let me go to you, Ms. Taylor, to start off.
So let me pause right here. I just want to read this one comment and make a note of a couple things here. So JC Marty, and hey, JC Marty, how are you doing? Says, I think you have 90% of the evidence. Where did you get 90% from? 51 terabytes, that's 300 million pages. I know I have not read 300 million pages of information that contains within it evidence. Not even, I haven't read 90% of that even. I don't know if you. I'm just teasing you, but I don't know if we have 90%. I think we have a very small percent personally, but who knows? So JC says, I think you have 90% of the evidence. No DNA, no sheath will be presented in court by the prosecutor. So that apparently is true. So when Ann Taylor, representing Bryan Kohberger and the defense was objecting to the state's motion for the protective order for some information regarding the investigative genealogy process and the identities of the people that were built into that family tree and, all their information and a little bit about the process. That's basically what they were trying to protect with a seal. That was not presented to the grand jury that convened, who by a supermajority, thank you DC Primetime, indicted Bryan Kohberger. And as some of you commented on my video today, and thank you for reminding me of the same because I forgot it, you can indict a ham sandwich, right? But because they don't need it, because now that they've done the buccal swab and they have harder evidence that shows that he's 5.37 octillion with 27 zeros times more likely to be his DNA than any other human being on Earth. And during the last live stream, we discussed that my brain just went blank. Oh, that if you took the number of people and you divided it into 5.37 octillion, it would go in thousands of times. 5.37 octillion is many, 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 many times more people than have ever walked the face of the earth. It's just an astronomical number that most of us, unless you're a super statistician, can't even wrap your brains around. So that investigative genealogy evidence that they did use, that they took all of those laborious steps to build out that family tree, to make that connection to his father, that eventually was the linchpin at the time for the connection to Kohberger, that is not going to be presented before the jury. Now, some of you are commenting, if the jury is like, any other American I know, even if it's not presented in evidence, they will have heard about it at some point, because it seems like virtually everybody on planet Earth, all of those who are very likely to not have dropped their single source of touch DNA on the sheath, it feels like everybody is tuned into this case. Maybe it's just because I have a true crime channel, but even a lot of people I know, you probably have the same experience, y'all, who aren't into true crime, no details about this case.
Where do we start?
Your Honor, we would request that we start on defendant's motion to compel and second motion to compel. I believe the third motion to compel will be heard on a different date.
True.
As it relates to the two motions to compel, and I'll present my arguments whenever the court's ready, but I can direct the court exactly to the numbers in those motions to compel that are still up for discussion today and requested ruling from the court.
Excellent. I'm ready.
On the original motion to compel, we are only seeking the court to order number 6 be complied with in that particular motion.
Okay, let me take a look at that. Number 6. And so this is the motion to compel discovery that was filed on May 4th.
Yes, Your Honor, that's correct.
Number 6. And that is request number 160.
That is for request number 160, and that was in the second supplemental discovery.
Okay, thank you. All right. And we're getting, is that me? Okay. Number 6.
Number 6 on that one, yes. On the second motion to compel.
Okay, so let me
we
just give
are
you a context
reading
here. So I'm going to bring up the documents that she's referencing because I do know that the volume is a little difficult to hear. Some people are just visual anyway, and I think sometimes this is dense information. I am not an attorney. Maybe some of you are. If you are, definitely let me know because I'm going to add you to the WotC Obsession legal consultant team. But it's a lot of kind of dense legal information to take in. So I think we learn best when we take in information a number of different ways. So let's do it. So she's focusing on wait a minute. Okay. All right. So here we go. I got it. I thought I was missing something there. So what she is focusing on, and she's referring to this document right here. It's going to take me a second to switch back and forth, but I think it's just good that we do it like this. Is she said it's in the first motion to compel discovery, which was filed on May 4th. So it's defense's first motion to compel discovery filed on May 4th. There so far have been 4 also supplements and amended motions to compel discovery. So they're spending a lot of time trying to, nudge that evidence their way or grandstanding or a little bit of both. As Peter Trago said in that video that I uploaded that I played earlier, I played this little soundbite of him talking because, I heard him talking about how attorneys, one of the things they need to do is know how to leverage the information and the ability to, file motions and responses, because that is all part of the play, right? Sometimes it does feel a little bit like grandstanding, but anyhow. So she's focusing on number 6 here in that first motion to compel discovery. Mr. Kohberger requests an order for the state to disclose, yeah, you guys are looking at that, the following items included in the defendant's second supplemental request for discovery. So see how this gets confusing with the amended and the supplementals. And request number 160, they want the training records of specific and naturally redacted officers that were part of the investigation. So my question surrounding this is, does the defense want the training records of these specific officers? It will be very interesting just because they really want the training records of the officers because they have legitimate, based in good faith reasons to feel that is necessary to learn more about the training history of the officers and their type of training to bolster the defense's position. And we still don't know what that is yet. Or, I shouldn't say or, but is it a combination of also knowing that part of the popular Bryan Kohberger is not guilty narrative is certainly that there was investigative misconduct. And I'm not saying there's not. I see certain areas where that might exist, although I do think Kohberger is guilty. And, some people think, even to the realm of straight up collusion and downright filthy, dirty corruption. So my question is, are they asking for these training records just completely from a good faith place? Or is this in part to play on the, the public's Bryan Kohberger is not guilty popular narrative? What do you guys think? I'm going to see if I can get some comments on that, because I think it's a question worth asking. Oh, and somebody asked, well, why isn't anyone concerned about the other people that were in the house and the 8 hours that lapsed between the tragedy and the 911 call? I am super concerned about that. I am absolutely concerned about that. I think it's a huge issue. I can't wait to hear what has to be said about that. I'm not really poking into it anymore because I don't know if there's any more to poke at really without any additional legitimate information, because people are now starting to make up information and we don't do that here. But yeah, I'm totally concerned about that. But I think maybe, I'm not focused on it because what is most important is that somebody is brought to justice for this horrific crime that they committed against these 4 innocent people for the sake of their souls, for justice for them, and for peace for their families. So although that 8-hour lapse between the tragedy and the 911 call is part of the puzzle, I can't just continue to focus on that because, I for me, it's like on the bigger picture. Hey, Jen Riley. So Jen saying, yeah, people think it was his DNA. People think it was planted by the police. Yeah. Yes. Hey, Aaron, how are you doing? Aaron says, sorry if it's been discussed, but I was under the impression that no explanation for lack of DNA evidence means no DNA, no blood, no evidence of cleanup chemicals, nor replacing interior carpet, etc. So I am so glad that you asked this question, Aaron, because I actually wrote that down in my notebook, which is across the room now. It was like my number one start point to bring up, and I would have probably forgot if it weren't for you. Aaron's question again is, I was under the impression that no explanation for lack of DNA evidence means that there is no DNA, that there is no blood, that there is no evidence of cleanup or chemicals or evidence of replacing the interior, the floorboards, or, parts of the car, I don't know, whatever you would replace if you were trying to clean up, DNA evidence in your car. I don't even know what that would be. So many people have asked me that question or commented to one of the videos I put up with this, and I don't know where everyone is getting it from. I think that there must be a channel or a couple channels that are saying this, but this is absolutely, not the case to say that. And I actually talked to the 2 lawyers that I talked to this channel issues about, and I called jokingly the Watch the Obsession legal consultants. But to say that, okay, I just want to read the exact statement because I think this is a really important point, and then we're going to get moving on with it. But this is a very important point. Hang with me on this. All right. So let me just share the statement here so we can all see exactly what we're talking about. Stop screen, present screen. Okay. Oh, weird. Okay. No matter what came first, the car or the genetic genealogy, the investigation has provided precious little. There is no connection between Mr. Kohberger and the victims. And like I was saying in the video that I uploaded earlier and in the last live stream, after Ann Taylor has made that strong, full stop, simple sentence assertion, there's no connection between Mr. Kohberger and the victims. I hope for the love of God that she does not have to somehow explain away his touch DNA on the sheath, even though we aren't sure exactly how the state is going to present the DNA evidence. But anyhow, because she has made this statement, that is a very definitive and difficult statement, in my opinion, to walk back on. She has said in no uncertain terms, there is no connection between Mr. Kohberger and the victims. Now, a lawyer's wording in these pre-trial proceeding documents, the motions and the responses and all that, this is not testimony. It's not like you're going to impeach his lawyer on the stand because she's going against something she said in one of the, legal documents, but it is a strong statement. You know what I'm saying? Moving on. I could parse these couple sentences like for a lifetime. So then what Aaron's talking about, there's no explanation for the total lack of DNA evidence from the victims in Mr. Kohberger's apartment, office, home, or vehicle. So there is no explanation for the total lack of DNA evidence from the victims in Mr. Kohberger's apartment, office, home, or vehicle. All that means, according to our two What's the Obsession legal analysts, is that there is no evidence of DNA in those places. It does not mean that there is no evidence of chemicals, that there is no evidence of cleanup, that there is no evidence of replacing interior. There's no evidence of shampooing the carpet and ripping up the carpet and replacing the floorboards. It does not mean that there is not all of that. There might be some or all of those things in little bits and pieces, but they are building the case. Parts of the investigation are still answering critical questions, and they might not know what these little indicators of him using chemicals, him cleaning up the scene, him replacing the interior of the car, him replacing his carpets. They might not be able to make a strong enough connection to, he did this. This is exactly what he did. This is the date and time that he did it. He did it after this crime was committed because the victim's DNA in the form of blood was on this substance, in this vehicle, in this apartment. Therefore, it had to be cleaned, and this is how he did it. You see what I'm saying? Though that is a lot of pieces to put together to say that the lack of the DNA evidence means there's no DNA, there's no blood, there's no evidence of cleanup, there's no chemicals, there's no evidence of replacing the interior, the carpet, etc. That is a whole shitload of things to put together that requires a lot of investigation, a lot of pieces to fit properly together. All that statement means is there is no literal DNA markers in his apartment, his home, his office, and his car. Okay. I don't know if I belabored that point, but I think it's really important. And I have a feeling that there is a channel or two out there that is saying that again and again because of the number of you that have said almost the same thing. And it's okay. I mean, I say things that I hear on other channels too. Like I am questioning it or I believe it or I just want to throw it out there. All good. But we don't want to start any false narratives. Oops. Sorry, I got to bring this back in the stream now. Back to the court proceeding. And again, we are talking about that item number 6 in the first motion to compel discovery filed on May 4th. And that is asking for the training records of specific officers. And of course, they're redacted.
Request number 1, number 4, number 5. And I think that we have a plan for the other numbers, so those of you that are reading it.
Thank you. Let me make sure. Page. Okay, number 1 is request 1. 4 is request 23.
I'm sorry, Your Honor, it's number 2, request 4.
Okay, I apologize. Number 2, request 4. Okay, and you said number 5.
And number 5, which is request 109.
the second motion to.
DC Primetime says, y'all know Ann loves cops. And I just want to point out that is can you hear the sarcasm in the typing font?
Correct.
All right. Do you want to make an argument about those?
I would love to.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Your Honor, first, I want to start with talking about the discovery process. As the court knows, we have been representing Mr. Kohberger since the very end of December of 2022. And during the course of the last several months, there has been a lot of discovery that's been requested and a lot that's been supplied. I come here asking the court to compel discovery. I'm seeking an order directing that we receive this discovery. I'm not seeking any other kind of sanction. I don't come here saying that the prosecutor has done something wrong. I come here saying that there are things that we have a disagreement about whether I should get them or when I should get them, and we seek a court order to assist us in this regard. Yesterday, we filed an exhibit that related to our motions to compel. And
Can you guys hear the audio? I just beefed it up a little bit. Thank you, Ara, for letting me know it's really low. Let's see what you guys say.
The purpose of that exhibit was to show the court how the discovery is coming in and what we are weeding through to try to find the information, and to let the court know that our office is making extraordinary efforts. Mr. Kohberger's team works nonstop, and when we ask for discovery, it's because we have reason to believe it exists. So I wanted the court of counsel to be aware it's not a fishing expedition. These are real items that are really necessary to investigate this case and prepare Mr. Kohberger's defense. So with that as the background and the frequent communication with the prosecutor's office to try to obtain the materials we need, we have come to an impasse in a few areas, and that's what brings us to court today. As the court knows, discovery is governed by statute 1309 and Idaho Criminal Rule 16. And the purpose of discovery is really to prevent an unfair trial, to prevent trial by surprise, and also to protect a charged person's rights to meet their defense.
Okay, so I think this is really important. Ann Taylor there just lays out, she says the purpose of discovery is, let me just go back a couple sentences. Listen to this, because this is important. We have to always remember, what the purpose of all of these steps of the pretrial, their trial proceedings mean. What is each of their place in the judicial process? Because then everything else, in that context, hopefully makes a little more sense or is a little more grounded.
Okay. As the court knows, discovery is governed by statute 1309. I believe it exists. So I wanted the court of counsel to be aware it's not a fishing expedition. These are real items that are really necessary to investigate this case and prepare Mr. Kohberger's defense. So with that as the background and the frequent communication with the prosecutor's office to try to obtain the materials we need, we have come to an impasse in a few areas, and that's what brings us to court today. As the court knows, discovery is governed by statute 1309 and Idaho Criminal Rule 16. And the purpose of discovery is really to prevent an unfair trial, to prevent trial by surprise, and also to protect a charged person's rights to meet their defense. It protects their Sixth Amendment rights to have a sufficient and a prepared counsel, I should say, as we have a duty to investigate the case. So in preparing our case for Mr. Kohberger, we've asked for several things that we still need. I'll talk first about request number 6 in the first motion to compel, and that stems from discovery request 160. It's training records. These are training records of 3 specific police officers. Your Honor, we have not asked for training records for every officer that has had anything to do with the case. I would not want to stand here and let the court think that this is an exhaustive list of the officers that we might need training records for. that these are 3 officers that we've requested them for, and the state has indicated they're not willing to give us their training.
All right, guys. So this is important, I think, for this reason. So when I heard her talking about this when I was first watching, I was like, oh, damn. Let me know what you think, because I actually haven't talked about this with anybody. It's all been in my own head. So it's important that you guys give me some feedback. And, you know, like that's what we do here on this channel. You guys are always helping the process. You guys are super smart. So when I first heard that, she's saying, you know, we don't want the training records of all of the officers, but 3 specific officers. So what that says clearly is there are 3 specific officers that in the eyes of the defense have done something that could be brought into question to the degree they want to know what their training is. That's significant, I think. Yeah, what do you guys think about that? Now, Cindy Abbott, how are you doing? Welcome. Says, after we all saw George Floyd, God rest his soul, murdered by cop Derek Chauvin, and seen his conviction, can we still have unconditional faith that law enforcement cannot be corrupt? No, I don't have that faith at all. It's a good question, though. Thank you for asking it. Now, another good question Rockaway is brought up, and I'm going to be honest, Rockaway's damn, I haven't even thought about this, and this possibility scares me. The Rockaway says, does anyone know if BK was ever inside the crime lab that identified the touch DNA on the knife sheath? He worked with the police in that area as part of his studies that could explain the touch DNA. You know, I'm trying to think about it. I don't know the details of where the DNA evidence was analyzed, where the sample was taken secondarily. This is a really good question, the Rockaways. Thank you for asking it. Yikes. Hopefully it's not a possibility. JC Marty says, training records for the people that are involved. Corporal Payne is a rookie, 2 years. Where did he get his law enforcement education? Yeah, you know, I mean, it is pretty interesting that it is Corporal Payne who is the law enforcement agent who authored the probable cause affidavit, because he is so green. You know, Chief James Fry, when questioned on a couple of occasions, stood by the competency of his team and Corporal Payne. But, you know, something I have said on this channel before, much to, I don't know, we don't have to go with it, but this is a proven fact. To be an expert at something, to be at a level where you are considered an expert, or where you yourself would have, you know, ability or knowledge or whatever that was the level of expertise, you have to do this thing, practice this skill, apply this skill in repetition for 10,000 hours. So when I brought this up back in the day, I've been teaching yoga for well over 20 years, and I've done extensive training all over the place. And, you know, I had to calculate the amount of hours I've done in training and teaching, and it is well over 10,000 hours. So other than being a person who breathes, I think that being a yoga teacher is the only thing I really could say I am an expert in, because I think that might be the only thing I've really applied and practiced my skill at over 10,000 hours. Anyhow, when you have put in 2 years in law enforcement, you have not reached that expert level. I'm just saying, I'm just throwing it out there. I'm just saying.
These 3 officers are officers that have each conducted critical interviews with critical witnesses in a case, made decisions about the interviews, made decisions about evidence, and conducted other kinds of investigations. We seek their training records to understand their processes. The training records, Your Honor, they are records that we've been able to obtain from various police agencies in the past. In this circumstance are not records that I could find on my own.
Everybody, please stop and hit that like button. Supports the channel. I really appreciate it. And my wonderful moderators keep asking you to do it. Thank you so much.
These are not things that are on the internet. They're not going to just hand them over to me. The two of the officers that we've requested them about are Idaho State Police officers. I have often received training records for Idaho State Police officers in the preparation of other cases during the course of my career. They are imperative for us to understand the specialty in interrogating and interviewing people and for making the decisions that they make with regard to things taken as evidence in the case or things followed up on or not followed up on. That is the purpose for those records, and we're asking the court to order the state to provide the training records for those three officers. Moving on then to our second motion to compel. And what we are looking for is a lot of information from the FBI CAST team, as well as the FBI forensic examiner team. What we're talking about here is the CAST team are the FBI examiners that use cell phone records to provide a lot of information that found its way into the probable cause affidavit that the state relied on in arresting Mr. Kohberger. I had the opportunity to meet with the prosecutor, and they indicate that we will be getting those items in number 1 and number 6 disclosed to us, but we don't know when. So I'm asking this court to issue an order with a date certain to obtain those records. These are bits of investigation that the FBI conducted that relate to Mr. Kohberger's cell phone, and the state has relied on that in their affidavit to say that Mr. Kohberger was in certain places at certain times. So these are bits of information and analysis that's been done since December. We are now at the end of June. We do not have those records yet, Your Honor. They are something that's been relied upon by the state for the PC affidavit to arrest Mr. Kohberger, as well as to obtain a variety of search warrants. It's information that the state has agreed we should have, so we ask the court for an order with a deadline to get that. I want the court to know I don't think that Mr. Thompson or Ms. Jennings are trying to withhold this. I think they'll give it to me when they have it, but I think an order from the court saying this is the date certain may help them get the information a little bit more rapidly. I'll move on to our last request, and that's number 2 in the second motion to compel, request number 4. And that has to do with the FBI forensic examiner that told the state to look for a white Hyundai Elantra. This is the examiner that originally there were certain years looked for, and that year range was expanded. I believe I have the communications between the police department and the FBI about how that date range changed, but what I don't have is the report from the examiner. I did receive the CD, curriculum vitae, from about the examiner late yesterday from the prosecutor's office, so I'm asking the court to order a deadline for the report to be given to the defense. Again, the court's read the probable cause affidavit that led to Mr. Kohberger's arrest, and the court can see that this vehicle identification was heavily relied on by the state to arrest Mr. Kohberger, as well as to obtain a lot of other search warrants. This is information that is very necessary for us to prepare our case. I don't think Mr. Thompson and Ms. Jennings are withholding anything. I think they don't have it, but I think we need a court order with a deadline so that we can get that. As the court is aware, the state has a duty to provide discovery to the defense. As the court is aware that not producing discovery, especially when it's material, can be a due process violation. And as the court is aware, the state has filed its notice of intent to seek death against Mr. Kohberger. These are critical, relevant materials, all of them.
I'd like to add, when I uploaded the video earlier today, I asserted that it is, the defense and the prosecution both have their ethical duties in this whole process. And one of the ethical duties, it is also a legal requirement for the prosecution when a grand jury convenes and they present their prosecution's case towards the goal of an indictment, they must, by law, present any and all exculpatory evidence that they are aware of. That is a fact. Several people questioned that when I asserted that in the video. So I went back and I checked my two people sources, and then I checked my researching sources. That is an absolute fact. You cannot convene a grand jury as a prosecution, run the grand jury proceedings, have exculpatory evidence in your back pocket and not present it. That's absurd. I just wanted to make that point. I don't know, again, if there's something being said out there that's making people believe that prosecution does not need to present exculpatory evidence in a grand jury, in grand jury proceedings, but they do.
Including the police training records. They're necessary for us to prepare and present our defense of Mr. Kohberger. They're necessary for us to do our investigation. They're necessary for us to prepare our case and our motion practice moving forward. These are things that we need to have. There is a heightened standard now that the state has filed a notice of intent to seek death, and these are very relevant, critical bits of information. They are discoverable, and we're asking the court to order that they be supplied to us.
Bon, I am reading your comment, and I am going to go grab the document to read the line before.
Mr. Thompson or Ms. James? Ms. James.
So Ms. Taylor's correct. She has everything that the state has in our possession. And we have worked diligently and consistently in getting her all the information that we have in a quick fashion. To date, we have discovered approximately about 13,000 pages of reports, 13,000 photographs, over 10,000 tips, and over 51 terabytes of audio and video information. So we are down to just a few points of disagreement.
Sorry, my.
Oh, is it okay if I say?
Yes, yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
First, with regard to item number 6 on the defendant's first motion to compel discovery. This involves training records of a couple of officers. Again, these are officers who the state would argue are not material to the case. They've interviewed other witnesses. They wouldn't even be called by the state.
I'll be right back. I just have to plug my computer in. So I'm going to turn off the screen from it. My screen.
Testify at trial. And the state objects to this because training records of specified officers aren't included within Rule 16. And they haven't offered any reason as to why this would be needed for the preparation of the case. Again, these are investigators who have gone out and just interviewed some witnesses within the case. So we'd ask that you rule that this is outside Rule 16. I would just remind the court that several hundred investigators have been involved in this case. Our concern with allowing training records for these few, which we can't understand why there's a substantial need for these particular ones, wouldn't open the door to us then having to go and obtain training records for these hundreds of investigating officers who've been involved, some of which are outside of our control. Moving on to the second motion to compel. As to item number 1, regarding cast information, Ms. Taylor has everything that we have. I've also, that includes reports from MTV officers. What she is seeking is a specific report from the FBI cast team, which I have indicated to her is in its final stages of review. And we are anticipating receiving sooner rather than later, and as soon as we do, we will turn that over.
Sooner than later.
Well, I don't have a date certain, but within the next few weeks.
I think Ms. Taylor wants a date.
I don't have a
If I'm
date.
not mistaken.
I have asked for a date, but that is not how the federal bureaucracy works.
That's, how about we say something like July 14th, unless there's some reason that they can't get that to you.
No objection.
That would be Ms. Taylor.
Yes, Your Honor. And then the state has substantially complied with request number 4, which is the same types of information, but related to the identification of the vehicle. We asked for the exact same date certain of July 14th, only to obtain, if there is one, a potential report that's outstanding.
Acceptable. Ms. Taylor?
Yes, Your Honor.
Again, I mean, if there's some itch in that, I mean, we can explore that, see what.
Nothing further. I think that takes care of everything.
Thank you, Ms. Jennings. Anything to respond to, Ms. Taylor?
Yes, Your Honor. I want to give a little bit more on the police training records. I am aware that over 120 officers were involved in the investigation in this case. I am not asking for all 120 officers. I will tell the court that likely there are other officers' training records that I will want. This is within Idaho Criminal Rule 60. These are records, documents, and objects that may have information relevant to Mr. Kohberger's investigation and defense. These are records that are likely of witnesses. Whether or not the state calls them, they are likely to be witnesses. The 3 that I'm asking for now.
Okay, so I know that the volume is very low here, but I think that this is to me, this was sort of like the officer's records was kind of the most interesting part. And I thought, in my opinion, one of the 2 most critical parts of this hearing is she says, okay, judge, I'm not asking for all 120 of the investigators or the officers' records. I'm asking for a specific 3. I'm asking for these 3 because the records of their training might, I can't remember exactly how she just phrased it, but it might be material to certain aspects of Mr. Kohberger's defense. So guys, this is very, very interesting. So we know that there were 120 officers that were active in the investigation, 120 officers that played a part, whether they were on the scene, processing evidence, doing interviews, whatever the case may be. And of those 120 officers, the defense is only asking for the training records of 3. It's going to be extremely interesting to find out eventually who those 3 officers are, because, there has to be a reason, right? There has to be a reason. So what is that reason? Does anybody have any thoughts on that? I'm going to keep playing this, but I'm going to get down to, I'm sorry if I missed, your chat comments here, but I want to get down to the current time in chat. I did star a couple comments that I want to get back to. I think this is an interesting point of discussion. Physics asked, do you think Xana and Ethan ordered the DoorDash delivery food or food plus stuff? Or do you think the unalivener ordered the DoorDash delivery, and why? I think that's a really interesting discussion point. Physics, I want to get back to that. John says, what if Bethany talked to or let in the DoorDash driver? And the defense knows this. That could put another person in the house. Or if BK is the DoorDash driver, that could be reasonable doubt. Absolutely good thinking. So I think these kind of two comments went together. I thought they're pretty interesting. I'd like to go back to them. Yeah. So Dee Original also, Original, Ohio girl, sorry, my eyesight, says, what about following them on social media? That's not a connection. Well, here's the thing. This is how I read it, and tell me if you have a different reading of it. But I don't know if we know definitively that he followed them on social media. We know that there are statements, like from the Gonsalves family that says, that they found people that were followed all of the girls on social media. We do know that there are social media profiles with Bryan Kohberger's picture and his name that are following all of the victims. But unless you were looking into that before you knew that Bryan Kohberger existed and he was a suspect, we, without the investigative power of law enforcement, cannot definitively say that, because there have been so many spoof accounts that have been made. You know what I mean? So this is one of these things that you're pointing to here. And I'm so glad you brought this up, Dee Ohio girl, and welcome. Did I say that? Did I say welcome? Well, welcome again if I did. Because, this is one of these things that any of us, including myself, could very easily start to take for granted as a fact, because it's implied in so many ways. But we really have seen so very little of what is in the discovery, unless there's something in the probable cause affidavit that's not clicking in my mind right now that tells us this. I don't think we know that for a fact, but it's a very reasonable assumption based on everything we know and everything we've heard.
They have critical roles at various stages. One of the officers did a Stillman search for 2011 to 2013, a data entries, and to give to the FBI to look through these. One of that same officer assisted in the search for this same officer interviewed witnesses from the scene of 1122 King Road on the 13th of November. This officer did follow up with some of the key witnesses in the case. This officer signed an Ada County lab agreement, and this officer handled and collected evidence. The second officer that I seek the information from did an interview with a key witness that's expected to testify when this case goes to trial. This officer also mentioned a specialty of working with victims and trauma victims. I think those training records are very relevant. The interview of this key witness was one of multiple interviews of this same key witness by various law enforcement officers. There's a lot of information in the various interviews that's going to come into trial. This officer may well be subpoenaed by the defense.
Okay, so this officer that she's talking about, one of the three of the 120 for which they want to see the training records for the reasons we stated, says that this officer interviewed one of the witnesses. So guys, really, how many witnesses are there to this crime? So if we're trying to think about who this is, I mean, that really narrows it down, right? Get what I'm saying?
That person's training records are very good. The last officer did multiple interviews, I think a dozen or so, many of them after the arrest of Mr. Kohberger. This officer also interviewed key witnesses in the case. This officer attended the autopsy proceedings. This officer followed up on tips. This officer made decisions about the tips that were given to law enforcement. And this officer also collected bits of evidence. Those functions that police officers make daily in their jobs, they make decisions about a case that later comes to court. They make decisions about the case the state's going to present against Mr. Kohberger. They talked to key witnesses. How they do their job, how they were trained to do their job, and what they were.
Yeah, I'll turn on captions So I'm going to take down the chat for now. Oh no, hey McJay, thank you for the super chat. I really appreciate it so super much. Thank you for supporting the channel, for being here, for voicing your opinion, and thank you so much for the super chat. I'm going to turn on captions, so I'm not going to highlight the comments that you guys are leaving for right now. Okay, I'm going to star them though, so we can go back to them. Okay. I just want to read this one. I like, or I have something to say about this one too, just real quick. John's Custom Sauce says, what if BF has info on her phone that disputes the timeline? They changed the timeline from 3 a.m. originally to after 4 a.m. The original timeline had to be for a reason. Why did they change it? Well, one of the reasons that they changed it, I think, was, well, I don't know, because they would have known that Xana was on TikTok. I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. But I do know that in the probable cause affidavit, they refer to the timeline, and I'm going to have to show you this now. They refer to the estimated time of this horrific crime happening as being based on the phone dump of the surviving roommates. Super quick. Why does it have to say Reddit? Doing that. So many times I'll type something in Google and it'll automatically put Reddit right after. All right, here we go. I just want to show you this one little section really quick in response to what the comment says there. Let me just scan it. I'm going to find it real quick, and then we'll move on. Okay. Sorry. All right. Okay, I'm just going to read this section of the probable cause affidavit because they are going to start to talk about phone evidence, and this is all going to be relevant to that, and then we'll continue on with court proceedings, okay? So I'm going to just share this document with you so you can read along if you're a read-along kind of person, and then when we come back to the court proceedings, I will put on the captioning. Is everyone struggling as much as Ara to hear? All right. So from the probable cause affidavit, it's just a little less than a page I'm going to read. Dylan Mortensen stated she originally went to sleep in her bedroom on the southeast side of the second floor. Dylan Mortensen stated she was awoken at approximately 4 a.m. by what she stated sounded like Gonsalves playing with her dog in one of the upstairs bedrooms, which were located on the third floor. Now, remember, guys, a little side note here, when we did the 3D tour of the house, I was shocked. I didn't realize that Maddie's bedroom is directly stacked on top of Dylan's bedroom. So Dylan is directly beneath the floor of Maddie's bedroom. So I think that's critical because think about that. We know what happened in Maddie's bedroom. Dylan's bedroom is directly beneath Maddie's bedroom. I think this speaks to what Dylan must have heard, seen, and perceived otherwise with her senses. I'm not going to go into too much of that, but you know, but that's for another day, I guess. A short time later, back to the PCA, Dylan Mortensen said she heard who she thought was Gonsalves say something to the effect of, "There's someone here." A review of records obtained from a forensic download of Kernodle's phone showed this could have also been Kernodle, as her cellular phone indicated that she was likely awake and using TikTok app at approximately 4:12 a.m. Dylan Mortensen stated she, guys, yeah, I just want to make sure I share. Oops, sorry. Okay. Here we go. Dylan Mortensen stated she looked out of her bedroom but did not see anything when she heard the comment about someone being in the house. DM stated she opened her door a second time. when she heard what she thought was crying coming from Kernodle's room. DM then stated she heard a male voice saying something to the effect of, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." That's so chilling. At approximately 4:17 a.m., a security camera located at 1112 King Road, a residence immediately to the northwest of 1122 King Road, picked up a distorted audio of what sounded like voices or a whimper, followed by a loud thud. Ugh. A dog can also be heard barking numerous times, starting at around 4:17 a.m. The security camera is less than 50 feet from the west wall of Kernodle's bedroom. Ugh. DM stated she opened her door for the third time after she heard the crying and saw a figure clad in black clothing and a mask that covered the person's mouth and nose walking towards her. DM described the figure as 5'10" or taller, male, not very muscular, but athletically built, with the infamous bushy eyebrows. The male walked past DM as she stood in a frozen shock phase. The male walked towards the back sliding glass door. DM locked herself in her room after seeing the male. DM did not state that she recognized the male. This leads investigators to believe that the murderer left the scene. Here's the ending culmination. The combination of Dylan Mortenson's statements to law enforcement, reviews of forensic download of records from Bethany Funk's and Dylan Mortenson's phones, and video of a suspect video as described below leads investigators to believe that the homicides occurred between 4 and 4:25 a.m. So it's a combination of all of those things that pinpoints that time. Now, I always thought it was curious that it was in part the forensic download of Bethany Funk and Dylan Mortenson's phones that indicated the time of this tragedy. But I do believe, unfortunately, and this just adds to the controversy, something that Mrs. Gonsalves told, I think it was a Drunk Turkey show when she spoke to them, that after, Dylan Mortenson heard all these things that she's describing in the PCA, that she called each and every one of the roommates. Now, obviously, Xana, Maddie, and Kaylee did not respond. So, that just makes that 8-hour discrepancy all the more curious. But in part, I digress. I'm going to get back to the court proceeding. We can always come back to this if you'd like.
Relied on is incredibly important. When they take the stand, they will say, based on my training and experience, Idaho Criminal Rule 16 talks about witnesses. This is information that the defense needs to conduct its investigation and preparation.
Any response to that?
Well,
I had a look. I thought maybe you wanted to say something else.
not necessarily, other than just to reiterate that this isn't covered by Rule 16, except for if the state were going to rely upon these witnesses and call them at trial. And then at that point, we would furnish all of that. Much of what Ms. Taylor is saying.
Just really quick, McJ, trial by surprise just means you don't want to win a court case because you were able to capture some gotcha moments. You want to try a case based on the evidence. That's all that means.
It's just pure speculation.
You could say pure speculation, except she just had quite a list of what these particular officers were involved in investigations. So, is that it with the motions to compel?
today.
For today, of course. No motions from the state. All right. Okay. Well, I'm going to take this under advisement. Look at the rules, some case law, and get a written decision on it. So with that, we're adjourned. Thank you all. Have a good rest of your day.
Bryan Kohberger's defense attorneys released new information about DNA testing from his car, home, and office. The results they believe could help them as a court fight brews over the genetic genealogy that led police to Kohberger.
Oh, that's interesting. I haven't seen this one.
I've covered a lot of crime stories over the years, many of them here at Law and Crime, and it always gets me
I just want to listen to a moment of this. I haven't seen this yet. I always like her coverage.
thinking about how important it is to stay safe. This is Palm Pepper Spray,
But
and it can
we
help you, dude.
don't want to
On the
hear her sponsor.
Bryan Kohberger's trial is set for October. And in newly filed court documents, his lawyers say none of the victims' DNA was found in Kohberger's apartment, home, office, or car. The revelation came in court documents filed by Kohberger's lawyers, objecting to the prosecution's request for a protective order on the investigative genetic genealogy the FBI used to ID Kohberger as a suspect. Prosecutors claim Kohberger, dressed in all black, went into the house on King Road after 4 a.m. on November 13th of last year, and in less than 20 minutes, killed all 4 students by stabbing. Then they say he got into his white Hyundai Elantra and took off, driving a longer...
All right, I don't want to go over all the facts of the case there, but hey, Anaphylaxis, I'm so glad you're here. So Anaphylaxis is recently retired law enforcement. She was a detective, I think. I'm so sorry. I always get your title wrong. I'm so sorry if I did this time too. And I would like to ask Anaphylaxis, let's see, I already forgot the question, but I starred the person that made a comment. Anaphylaxis. So what do you think about Corporal Payne being the lead investigator and the author of the probable cause affidavit with his, 2 years of law enforcement experience? I don't know if you were here, and I'm so glad you're here, and thank you for all you do, Anaphylaxis. I don't know if you were here when we were talking about that like a little bit ago. I was talking about, it takes 10,000 hours of skill application and practice to become an expert at it. Certainly he falls short of that expert level with only 2 years under his belt. I'd be very interested to know what you think about that if you're still here. Let me go over some comments here. Yeah, we talked about this a little bit during the last live stream too. Physics says there's video of people entering and exiting the crime scene with no PPE. Who knows what the paramedics touch? Oh, I mean, the paramedics, of course, they're just going in there to, they probably was apparent that they weren't going to be able to do much to help once they saw what was going on, but I'm sure they went in there like gangbusters. But yeah, it seems like almost nobody went in with their crime scene booties on. And that's a big deal. Bon says, I'm all for police, and I hate to even say this, in small towns, they make their own rules. I mean, it's true. I mean, I agree with everything you just said there. Yep. Yeah, right. Interesting. Ara says, look what happened in the OJ case. They found dirt on an officer and look what happened. Well, interestingly enough, I was talking about Mark Furman also during the last live stream because Mark Furman lives in Idaho now. And I think he's a PI, somebody said. And I was saying that he is the one investigator kind of person that I actually heard talking about. In my opinion, he is the one who started the rumor of Kelly Gonsalves having a stalker. I believe I heard it the first day that came out. I mean, they're beautiful young girls. You might assume that any of them could have a stalker. It's like, creepy guys sometimes stalk beautiful young girls. It's just kind of like how it goes. But I believe he's the first person that came out and said it. He was on, I think it was, of course, News Nation, and he was the only like law enforcement type, I don't know what his position is specifically right now, that actually talked about the stalker. So there he goes. Mark Furman at it again. Glad you brought him up, our yeah, racist bastard. Anna says, oh, hey, suspicious. Man, I'm still like half an hour behind. I got to get with it, but I want to see what Anna says here. It's the job of the defense to poke holes in the case. If they can make a cop look dishonest, immoral, etc., they can introduce some doubt into their testimony. Yes. But Anna, don't you think it's interesting that it's just like those three, well, out of the 120, but maybe it's not those three officers and something they did, but rather the witness whose testimony they took or the evidence that they collected that's making the defense really want to question them, because maybe it's those three officers that, you know, had a part in the ding, 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 you know, key critical evidence. I don't know. Hey, Jody is cool. How are you doing, sweetie? Oh, thank you so much, Utter. You're the best. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to try to get down to current comments here. Ann Taylor did make a good point by saying it's 6 months. Yes. And why don't they have certain information that within it contains evidence? It has been 6 months, but I just keep going back to the fact that 51 terabytes of information in discovery, that is like, the numbers in this case are just massive. Things are massive. There's just massiveness in this case. It's freaking hugeness. Bonbon says that Bonbon always believed, I'm sorry if I'm assuming she. There have been times I've said she and somebody's like, I'm a guy. I always believed he was innocent, but I was waiting to see if there was blood in the car. I've always believed he was guilty, and I've been waiting to see if there was blood in the car. Hey, Brandy Wine and True Crime, how are you doing? Great to see you, sweetheart. So R asks, does this request make the prosecution look bad, unprofessional, unable to follow the speedy trial? Well, I did notice that Ann Taylor, made a point to say, I don't think that the state is, withholding anything or hiding anything. She tried to make statements that did not, indicate, this kind of bad perception that you're implying here, but maybe I guess it depends on how you're looking at it. In the eyes of some, maybe that makes them careful and meticulous. I've kind of thought of it both ways. It's a good question though. This is a good point. Physics says, don't forget the police knew about the 4 a.m. DoorDash delivery when they released the original time frame for the event of 3 a.m. to 4 a.m. The public did not know why they closed the time frame at 4 a.m. back then. Yeah. Rockaway says, you have to admire Ann Taylor's dedication as a lawyer. My opinion is starting to really change of Ann Taylor. I'm, at first was seeing her as being, somebody, a trickster, somebody who is ready to, just like turn the next trick. But,
you know, I am starting to kind of think she's a badass defense attorney. Like, I think that's who she's proving herself to be. And her history, her record says that too, but I didn't believe that. Now I'm starting to. I see what you're saying now, Cindy. You made some comments like this before. I wasn't sure what you're saying. So Cindy's like, I stay up late just like BK was known to do, very late, and I turn off my phone too. Thankfully, I wasn't in Moscow. So I think you're saying, you know, in absence of the touch DNA on the sheath, you feel that that's like the bulk of the circumstantial evidence they had. I would assert that they do have more than that, but I think the Rockaways asked, you know, if you know the touch DNA on the sheath evidence were not there, if it gets thrown out, you know, is he guilty based on the other evidence? Yes or no? Is it a strong case or not? I mean, the rest of the case is highly circumstantial as far as we know. But I need to bring us back to 51 terabytes, strict broad gag order. Guys, we are all ignorante here. Like, really, I mean, we all have to concede that there is so much we don't know. My girl, sis. And how are the latent prints left, but not a single DNA source anywhere in the car? I'm not implying innocence, but it's a legitimate question from a potential future juror. Not in Idaho, but I digress. Right. I mean, yeah, we are the potential future jurors, except for those of us who are the creator of a true crime channel and like, I struck. It's a great question. Yeah, Anne is only doing like any good defense attorney should be doing. Thank God. And thank God he has a badass defense attorney, because if he did not, it would be a huge window for, first of all, injustice. And second of all, you know, the life, money, resource sucking appellate process that usually goes nowhere, particularly now that they have declared that this is a death penalty seeking case. I said it, YouTube. I said it. What are you going to do? Yeah. I said saliva ancestry. They claim they didn't have enough. Could I send more? No, thank you. Think about it. I will never do any of that. I just, no. Everyone who needs to find me can find me just fine. I don't need to give people extras. Rockaway says, not bad for a free lawyer, right? Ann Taylor, hell yeah, man. He really hit the jackpot on that. My attorney is $800 an hour in San Francisco. I believe it. It's crazy, right? And do you have to clock an hour if you make it's like 15 minutes if you make a 30-second phone call, right? Highway robbery. Suspicious is telling you, don't forget to smash that like. Thank you. Thank you, Suspicious. Bye, McJ. Did McJ leave or? Bye. Have a good night. Yeah, McJ. Okay, gotcha. I said typo. Hey, Renee Phillips, how are you doing? Says, Ann knows how cops roll. Sus, if nothing else. Bryan Kohberger knows what it feels like to be on our side of the fence. He is innocent, Renee states. I think this is a good comment. Physics, I'm not going to read it because I don't think YouTube's going to like me verbalizing, but, you know, good comment if everyone wants to read that. Oh, well, John Custom says, thank you so much. I really appreciate the compliment. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. You're flattering. Yeah, DC says to physics more like a mass M word for the profile of the offender. You've been saying that for a long time, haven't you, DC, that it was more like a spree, right? Right? That was, yeah, you've been saying that for a long time. Yeah. Oh, hey, thank you so much, MJ Maxie. I appreciate that. I appreciate you guys. Sweet and salty says, oh, just like I had dark chocolate, sea salt, caramel chocolate earlier. Oh my God, it was so good. Every time I see that, I'm like salivating because I want more. It's not too much. It's not too much to ask, really. Why is law enforcement stalling? So how is law enforcement stalling? Because they're in like cahoots with the prosecutor? Is that what you mean? I want to know. If you could clarify that, that would be awesome. Oh, thank you. I really appreciate this very, very much. This is what we try to create. This is an excellent channel, and I applaud a forum where no hate is shown. Thank you so much. I have really, you know, I strive for that, and it means a lot when that's what you guys experience. Thank you so much. So Sweet and Salty says Payne, Fry, and Gunderson. So that's your guess of the three that she's wanting the training records on. Yeah, thank you, Anaphylaxis. You're the best. For respect is the rule here. Yes, that's right. Respect. Physics says, one reason I think that Bethany Funk might have exculpatory evidence is the timing of the grand jury indictment right before she was scheduled to talk with the defense attorney. I thought of that in like a couple different ways. Okay, but so then, okay, and this is where I know. This is where I arrived to. I want to make sure I was going to be able to articulate what's usually just in my head, okay? If that's the case, and I've thought that's crossed my mind for sure many times, then we know that the prosecution legally is obligated to present any and all exculpatory evidence that they may have or be aware of to the grand jury, okay? So if Bethany Funk had exculpatory evidence in the timing of the grand jury convening had to do with that, and that motion to compel Bethany's testimony at the pretrial hearing from the defense, that would mean that the prosecution necessarily had to disclose to the ham sandwich, the grand jury, that exculpatory evidence, which would mean it certainly would then be in the at least transcript of the proceedings, which would mean, I don't know, maybe, it's possible. Never mind. Where I was going logically didn't really have a conclusion. So sometimes I do that. Okay. All right. Yeah, you know what? Kathy, thank you. I forgot this, Kathy Chapin, and thank you and welcome. Kathy says, I do believe Payne was military for most of his life, fought for our country and worked crimes in the military. So I do believe he has that background. So I actually do take back some of what I said about his lack of being underneath the expertise experience point. I am so grateful and have so much admiration for all members of the military, and they are experts. They are experts at what they do. That's for damn sure. So thank you. Oh, cool. Awesome. Oh, good. I love Sleuthy. I got to get down to current time.
I heard Sleuthy's here, and she's spitting some facts. Sleuthy, like, became at some point, like, my go-to fact person. I didn't even, I, like, it can sometimes be oblivious. I know that Sleuthy has been, like, in the YouTube world. Sometimes I don't know who the hell is who. But when I was looking for really difficult to find information, I came across Sleuthy just in my Google searches and on Twitter. And at first, the information that Sleuthy Goosey had was so, like, in depth, and it seemed so substantial. I almost thought, like, this can't be for real. But every time I looked into it, she checks out every single time. So I'd love to hear what Sleuthy has to say. Let's see. Good work, Sleuthy. Let me get. Oh, hey, Double R, how are you doing? Hey, Agape Love, how's it going? Yeah, so John says, John's Custom Sauce says, that's my point, though. When they released the original timeline, they had already talked to the roommates after I read that whole piece from Probable Cause Affidavit. Wouldn't Del Mortensen have given her statement about seeing a man in black at 4 a.m. and look through the phones? Well, I guess my thoughts are maybe they hadn't put all that evidence together yet. Although you'd think you'd want to construct a timeline, like really jiffy, snippy, snappy, right? But or I think it's possible that law enforcement wasn't putting out the exact correct information they had because they were looking for something else. Like, for example, law enforcement knew all along the timeline of what Ethan and Xana were doing, as corroborated by the two University of Idaho students who are fraternity brothers of Ethan Chapin that I've been talking to over the past 6 months. Have you guys heard about that? I've only said that like 1,000 times. Law enforcement knew exactly what they were up to, but then at some point, a while after the tragedy happened, while the investigation was going on, and it seemed to be, people were getting frustrated, it didn't seem like it was going anywhere fast enough. All of a sudden, they, put out this information that they want to know more about Ethan and Xana's whereabouts and their happenings and the events in their timeline from 9 a.m. till 1 a.m., where they knew exactly what they were doing that entire time. And then, after this tragedy happened, think about like Mrs. Gonsalves and Olivia Gonsalves's first interview. Where in the beginning Olivia's getting a little frustrated, and Christy Gonsalves like, we've got to get this right. The aunt was there. It was in their living room, and they said, we don't know anything about Ethan and Xana's timeline. Well, a lot of other people did. I forget where I was going with that, but it's a good question, John. Kathy says the prosecution and defense are both waiting on the FBI findings. They are both trying to work together until the reports come from the FBI. There are still some outstanding reports, and that seems completely plausible. Oh, Ara, did you check? Oh, she came in a couple minutes ago. Okay, if she comes back, Ara, let me know. I'd love to grab her. Hey, Unravel, how's it going, sweetheart? It's being pushed back from Montana. I don't know. What does that mean, Agape Love? You hear Ara chiming in here. That's why I keep whipping my head over. Whoops. Oh. Okay. Well, I got to get down to the current time here. What the heck? Oh my God. I'm sorry. I got to blow past all these comments. Hi, Tony. How are you? Hey, Sleuthy Goosey. Welcome. How are you? Oh, good. Okay, so I'm down to Kurt. Sleuthy Goosey, would you like to come up and talk about whatever you are talking about here in comments? I know that, I don't know if you're up for it, but it is requested. And as you know, you are my favorite fact finder and teller. So if you do want to come up, there's the link, sweetie. But let's see what Sleuthy Goosey and you guys are talking about here. Okay. All right, there we go. Hey, Leanne, how are you? Hey, Carmelita Dorsey, how's it going? And Carmelita says, law enforcement's investigation is over. They're not stalling. That's why I was kind of questioning What exactly did you mean by that? But hey, Rosie, how are you doing? Yeah, it was delish. Possibly. Well, Ara says the death penalty was a chess move. It's making the defense team scramble. Listen, maybe it was, maybe it wasn't, but this is all I know. If Idaho is a state that is going to have the death penalty, if the death penalty is not pursued for this case, and I was saying this during last live stream, and I'm sure many others have this sentiment because I think it's just like, it's overwhelming. If they're not going to pursue the death penalty for Homie here, then they need to get rid of it, because then what should you be put to death for? It doesn't get much worse. You know what I mean? Slaughtering innocent young people. Whew, man, seriously. Oh, so Sleuthy Goosey says, I definitely know pain is one. Aha! That's what we were thinking, but I wasn't sure of that. The other two are Idaho State Police, apparently. She said Idaho State Police officers and a Moscow Police Department officer. I know who was at the autopsies, so that might narrow it down also. Awesome. Yeah. How do you know pain is one, by the way? I don't know. I had just heard that. I assumed it was, just knowing the way that people and have been questioning him in general, the way the defense is questioning certain aspects of the evidence, and knowing the part that he played, but I didn't have any hard evidence on that. It was just a hunch, and what y'all are saying too. So Agape Love says Gregson and Payne were at the autopsies too, and there was others. Oh wait, you said was at the autopsies too. I don't recall. Gosh, so many facts on this case. If anybody knows, go ahead and list them out. Physics says, if other students knew about the murders before police were called, why assume that Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funk were the source? Rumors could have originated by the frat by people who knew their peers did the crime. First of all, so I feel strongly on this one. So according to the two Sigma Chi fraternity brothers of Ethan Chapin, who are very good friends of him and are still close with the Chapin family and Hunter, and, you know, are really just, I don't know, I've been speaking with them, communicating with them regularly for, it's over 6 months now. I keep saying 6 months, probably like 7 months now. I haven't done the math. It's like 10 or 12 days after this tragedy happened, because I reached out to 4 people looking for some specific information. 2 of them responded, and one of them was one of the 2 who I talk with now. He brought his friend in on it. Anyhow, I really don't think that students knew much before, you know, when I am talking with them, the rough timeline, don't hold anyone to this, that we've come up with based, or that they've come up with, really. I just talk with them about it, but it's their information based on when they know that they were awake because of, you know, obligations they had that day and a couple other things, because as I've shared with you many times, they've said to me many times that that day was like any other day until it wasn't. And it was completely, you know, sideways clusterfuckorama, right? So, Michael, there's my son, as I say, clusterfuckorama. But I was not one of the fraternity guys that did it. I mean, I know that's what you're implying there, and it's okay. You're entitled to your opinion regardless of like the, you know, connections that I, you know, am a little connected to, I guess, or, you know, that whatever I hold dear, you're entitled to your opinion. I can separate that, but it was not frat boy. Oh, nice, man. Hey, I like that name. Says the exculpatory evidence could be that Bryan gave, sold, traded the knife sheath to BF in exchange for woohoo. The sheath was already in the house. I don't get that. You're going to need to follow up on that. I didn't follow that. I don't know how that made sense.
I'm not saying it didn't make sense. It might just be too late for me, but yeah, I know. There is a report of the attendees of the autopsy. I just, again, see late brain. I don't recall those little facts after time when there's so many facts as well. Some other people do. Aw, Sleuthy Goosey says, LOL, I'm everywhere. Don't like staying in one place. We should all share. I agree with that. I appreciate that. Just put out the summary of today's hearing, since it seems media isn't reporting what both sides say entirely. Oh, I'm going to go check that out straight away. Yeah, I know. I didn't get that, Mike. I don't know. If somebody wants to follow up on what you meant there. Oh, the beach. I'm so jealous, Sleuthy Goosey. That's awesome. Well, enjoy. You work really hard, Sleuthy Goosey, and I appreciate your work so much. There are so few sources I feel like I can go to now where I'm just like, there's the information. I trust it because I know that the person responsible for that information is like solid. So thank you, Sleuthy Goosey, for being that person. Seriously, because there's just so few out there and I really appreciate it. Big time. Yeah. And then Sleuthy Goosey says, I think that Dylan Mortensen's story didn't come full circle for them until they started, yes, this is what I was thinking, doing re-interviews December 12th, if not even later, like after the name came from the FBI, building that tree, but that's just my opinion. I have that same opinion. I kind of brushed over it and what I was just saying, so and maybe it's from reading something you put out. I don't know, but I have that same opinion. Oh, that's right. I forgot. Sleuthy Goosey emailed my best friend, Kathy Nibble. What did she say when you emailed her? I just heard that you had emailed her, but I never heard the outcome. I'm a behavioral therapist in my real day job life, and I mostly follow like a school year, like the heavy part of my work. I just have a few weeks, like 3 weeks off right now, but got really intense for a couple months. Just ended Friday. I really wasn't checked into anything other than work for a while, or else I would have known what she said to you because I do not like her. That's good. Yes, Sleuthy Goosey, we like your detail orientation so much. Oh, Joan Bradley. Hi, sweetheart, darling moderator. I'm sorry you're sick. And friend, I'm sorry you're sick. I hope you feel better. Agape saying, do you remember who else was at the autopsies? I could pull up a document a little quick. Oh, thank you for looking. Oh my God, that's like such a blessing for somebody to say, oh, I'm going to go look. Because like, you're doing a live stream and I'm also like trying to research. This is usually like what I'm doing. And there just comes a point in the evening where I can't do it anymore. My brain is like checking out. Bye. All right. Yeah, Pamela Smith. He's been talked about a lot. I knew he'd be the one. Yeah. Well, oh, nice, Matt. Why would he give her that in exchange for woohoo or whatever? Like, I don't get that. How would that be of value to her? I don't understand that. That's, I guess, what I'm asking. Yeah. So, there is, anytime a death penalty case comes about and, things happen, like a decision is made on it, these opinions do come out. And I don't know. I have been a vegetarian since I was 14, as you know. I raise little tiny bunnies. Like I love like little sweet vulnerable things. I cannot eat meat. I am like just very like life person. I've always, in the thought of it, the reality of it, in every way, have never stood by the death penalty ever. And, I think is an overarching feeling. And I've talked about this before and people criticize me
everyone just calm down. I'm a human too. Like, my thoughts and feelings change. And this is like, this is something that happened that brings up a lot of emotion and passion in people. So I think that's normal. Like, evolve. It's cool. So I can have that as my overarching theory, and that is my history. But in this case, I'm not upset that they decided to go for the death penalty. If he is guilty, I guess just us talking about knowing the details of this horrific crime. So, like, inside and out, those which have been disclosed, and just talking to one of the victims' families. I just think if ever the death penalty is going to be sought, this is the time if he's guilty. But then, there is the issue, that there are innocent people who've been put to death. So to your statement, Michael. Aw. Hi, Daniela. How are you doing? Hey, Kelly. Sending good vibes from Australia. Oh, that's awesome. We have a lot of people from Australia here. So cool. Do I think that Bryan had help? I personally do not. I personally, based on what we know right now, I do believe that he is guilty. And any evidence that comes into play that is fact-based, that is produced by Sleuthy Goosey, for example, certainly would change my mind. I'm not like married to it. I'm not committed to it in any way, shape, or form. It's just my thoughts based on what we know. Actually, Michael, whose comment I just had highlighted, said something that really stuck with me during a chat and live stream one time. People were talking about this idea that Bryan Kohberger had help, or had an accomplice, or whatever the specifics were. And he said, the guy is like so socially inept. He's not able to even look someone in the eye or hold like an ordinary, like casual conversation. Do you think that he'd be able to work well enough with somebody? And I know I'm paraphrasing what you said, Michael, but I think about it all the time. Well enough to like actually have an accomplice. And I just agree with the spirit of that statement, that Bryan Kohberger is not the like, let's work together kind of guy. You know what I'm saying? I mean, just, from the perspective of, one of the first things I did before we knew Bryan Kohberger was a suspect is, based on what I know from my background in behavioral analysis and psychology, was to, kind of draft a personality profile. And one of the most dominant qualities of the person who fit the personality profile that commit this crime is anti-social. Capital letters, neon lights, blinking all day long. Susie Goosey says, Mabit, Dr. Vina Singh, Detective Danny Vargas of Moscow Police Department. That's right. Detective Sergeant Gary Tollinson of the Idaho State Police Coeur d'Alene office. And that's from Mamba. I confirmed twice on March 28th. So those are the people that were present at the autopsies. Is that what I'm reading here? I don't want to be putting out wrong information. Let me just go back a little bit. So it was not Gunderson who was there then. All right, so let's just make sure we're putting out the right information. It's okay that if we were putting out other things too. I was thinking that different people were there also. It's all good. So I'm not like saying bad that anyone said anything that might not be accurate. Because we're all doing that with this case. But I just want to know exactly what we're talking about so I can tell the peeps the right information. Okay, so I think that pretty sure that Sleuthy Goosey is listing the people who were present at the autopsy, because that makes sense based on what I'm seeing in chat. So again, I want to screenshot that actually. Mabit, Dr. Vina Singh, Detective Danny Vargas of Moscow Police Department, Detective Sergeant Gary Tollinson, no N in there apparently. I keep saying that with an N, of the Idaho State Police Coeur d'Alene office. And that's from my girl Kath herself. Yeah. So yeah, most free nations do. It's very barbaric in the eyes of a lot of other societies that we in the United States or other countries that have the death penalty have it. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I read that comment on RIC. I mean, it's like, but where do we draw the line? You know, it's almost arbitrary. I don't know. So Sleuthy Goosey says the part about Gunderson, the reason people think that he was present at the autopsies is what she's saying based on the conversation we've been having, is because he was brought up in the defendant's second motion to compel discovery on 6/15, which is interesting because Mabbutt did not mention his name. That is interesting. Okay, so let me get this straight. So Sleuthy Goosey, who, as I've said, if you're just coming in, is endorsed by myself and a lot of other people, I'm sure, is being on first-class amazing source of actual factual, fact-checked, no bullshit, not gossip, not rumors, no manipulation or agenda, facts. Those are the ones we like the most. So Sleuthy Goosey spoke with Kathy Mabbutt on March 28th, at least. That's the date that she just cited here, and said that twice my girl Kath, told her that it was these certain people at the autopsy, just a couple of them. She did not mention Gunderson. However, Sleuthy Goosey is saying, man, you know these documents backwards and forwards. I admire that so much. You are so super detail oriented. That is such a gift. Maybe a curse sometimes, but it's awesome. So she's saying in the second request for discovery, I want to grab it here and take a look. Behavior therapist, that explains why you're so calm. Yeah, that is maybe one of my strengths. Remain calm under fire, and I have infinite patience. And that sometimes too could be a curse. Okay, so she says, but the people that situations like my job can be intense. Defendant's second motion to compel discovery on 6/15. Let me just grab that. Search that dude's name. I live in upstate New York, and we had that air. Oh my! You know what? I took some. I didn't take them. I grabbed some pictures off the internet for you guys. I was going to do a community post to share with you what was going on, but I forgot to. But maybe I'll remember to do it after this or tomorrow. We had the air from the Canadian wildfires here for a few days, and oh my word, I've never had a feeling like this. The air, it was just like sky was like yellow. I remember looking out, it was like just right around sunrise one morning, and I didn't know if it was the sun or the moon. It looked like literally a flaming ball of fire, huge. I didn't know that this was going on at the time, so I was thoroughly confused. I was like, it's happening. It's the end. But because of the Canadian wildfires, it was like millions and millions of acres. All of that smoke, thick yellow, thick smoke just hovered over us for like a week. And you couldn't even go outside because the air was literally toxic. There was all these health warnings. Anyway, apparently some of it, like sits in pockets all around the atmosphere, and it's like kind of coming back right now. I totally forget what I'm talking about this. This is when I start to get tired. All right. Therapist explains why. I can't remember why the hell I was talking about that. All right, I'm going to find the second motion to compel discovery. That was embarrassing. All right. Search Gunderson. Okay, it's only 4 pages. Sweet. Just for the sake of finding the name. Okay. Found it. Okay. Yep. You are so good, Sleuthy. Seriously. Just like, how do you, she's like, you're like a walking freaking encyclopedia. I'm just always constantly amazed. All right. Really quite remarkable. Okay. So this is what Sleuthy Goosey was referring to. The amazing mind of Sleuthy Goosey. All right. So, although Kathy Mabbutt told Sleuthy Goosey that Tollinson, Vargas, and were at the autopsy along with herself and the doctor who completed the autopsy, here in this court document, it also says Gunderson. That is so interesting, Sleuthy Goosey. How do you find this shit? I can't even. It's awesome, though. Okay, request 164. Body cam recordings, notes, photographs, and all information collected at the autopsies by Tollinson, Vargas, and Gunderson. I'm thinking about that. Body cam recordings, notes, photographs, and all information collected at the autopsies. So that this statement to you guys, are you reading it the same way? Would necessarily, am I right in saying that this statement, oops, let me get myself out of there really. This statement necessarily implies that Gunderson was at the autopsy, correct? Interesting. Let's see. Honey, can you not slam things? I'm on a live stream. All right, my son's being loud in the kitchen. And then it says, the state responded that they do not have these items in its possession. Clarification is needed on if they exist and are still in the possession of another agency. So I guess the question is, was the defense in error in stating that Gunderson may have recordings, notes, photographs, or all other information collected in autopsy and perhaps thinking he was there? Or was Gunderson there and it was just another freaking thing that Kathy Mabbutt got wrong? Only God knows, probably. Oh, and can somebody throw up Sleuthy Goosey's channel so people can know where to find good information? Or Twitter channel, anything, any link. That would be great. Thank you, guys. Oh, I know why I was talking about the freaking Canadian wildfire air. Because of that, I can feel that the air is coming back. I had a headache for the ages yesterday. I had to go to bed at like 6:30, and my brain is really like, yeah, I can feel it. It's funky. I don't know if anybody else had the Canadian wildfire, like the thick air, but it's crazy. The pictures I was telling you about is somebody who lives right nearby me. They took a picture of, it was like landscape one day, day 2, day 3, and it goes from like a normal picture to like, what the hell is in the air, to like, oh my God, it's crazy. It was disgusting. It was terrible. I couldn't breathe. It was nobody could breathe. It was crazy. Yes, that's right. Agape says, yes, Kelly, we are all here to help each other and to get to the truth. That's right. So true. Justice can be served and not overturned for the actual perps. Amen, Agape. Love. Mm-mm. Hi, Titanium Bill. How's it going? Nice to see you. Thanks for being here. Also, Titanium Bill has a great channel. If somebody wants to grab Titanium Bill's channel link and pop it in chat, that would be great. I definitely suggest checking out Titanium Bill as well. Spread the love. Whoops, where we go? Uh-oh, I just lost my place. See, there we go. Okay. So glad you're here, Titanium Belt. So physics says, don't get why Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funk would tell anyone it was an OD or a shooting, which is apparently what some people believed. The suggested homicidal peers are not necessarily in the frat. Okay. So yeah, and I wasn't being sharp or anything with you, that physics. I don't want you to think that. Yeah, I don't think that Dylan Mortensen or Bethany Funk told anybody that it was a overdose or a shooting because it didn't happen. I really am like so super clear on, well, first of all, like the facts as we know them, what I have heard firsthand from two students who were literally a couple of hundreds, I don't know how far the Sig Chi house is from 1122 King Road in, measurable units, but we've seen the footage. People have videoed themselves doing the walk. It's very close. Specifically from what they have said and from the reasons they have asserted why they know that several or many or gaggles or googles or goggles or tons of students knew hours before the 911 call was made. I've gone into great detail on all of this before. I don't want to do it again because I don't want to bring up, I just don't want to bring all that up right now. Right now we're looking at justice, but it's my personal opinion. People know this, and you know what? I'm sorry to say this because I like, being like, hey, let's support Sleuthy Goosey. She's awesome. Or Titanium Belt. Like, that's great stuff. Oh, also Ara's channel. My gosh. Wonderful moderator Ara. If you can put Ara's channel in chat too, that'd be great. Her channel's also great. She's been doing a lot of deep dives on Kylie Rodney. She has really good work. Anyway, that's how I prefer to be, but it is my belief that the narrative of some or tons or 60 to 40 students who are in a group in Snapchat knew hours before the 911 call was made was a false narrative, also known as a lie, that was pushed out by one or two or three channels or people or entities or whatever. I don't know. We don't have to name them. Because for clicks and views. I hate fucking when people say that, but that's what it is, for clicks and views. And I feel really confident, and that's what's up with that. So someday I'm never gonna talk about it again. Let's see. I'm just trying to follow like your conversations here in chat. Does anyone want to come up and say anything, by the way? I'm going to pop the link there if anybody would like to. I don't think I'm going to be up too terribly much long because I have the Canadian wildfire headache, but I love hearing from you guys. Yes, autopsy was done in Washington. That's right. Interesting. Guys, there's nothing like, I don't know. I'm not going to go into that. Rosie says, Becky, I agree. We've yet to hear precisely what Dylan Mortensen has actually said. Someone elsewhere stated how many times Dylan Mortensen has said clad in her statement. Well, how is that person privy to her statement? Rosie, I'm just asking you as a serious question. I'm curious because all I know of Dylan Mortensen's statement really is of what we've seen in the probable cause affidavit, right? Am I going crazy? Is it the Canadian wildfire smoke? Yeah, I feel you. I'm not going to read that out loud, Teresa, because of YouTube, but yeah, I agree. So, all right. So again, I've talked about this in detail in other videos, and I'm not going to go into it again for two reasons. Number one, oops, not matching what's going on here. Number one, I overstepped my bounds a little bit and I said more than I should. And I feel bad about that and I don't want to revisit it. But number two, I just don't want to go back there. But Pamela Smith says, and hi, Pamela, how are you? It says, I heard rumors that there was a falling out with a couple of roommates a couple of weeks before this happened. Not saying that BK is innocent, but the whole picture needs to be looked at. Okay, you didn't go into as much detail as I thought you did. So, yeah, I'd actually disclose some of those details. And I wish I didn't, because then it was like that, like, fake mom person took those details, the like blueprint of them, and filled them in with like the innards of hot dogs and pushed it out there. I didn't like that, especially since I'm a vegetarian. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Cindy makes a very important point. Being a psychopath, being socially inept and weird does not a killer make. Is Bundy and Gas, as in Bundy and Gassy, most sociopaths learn to emulate normal feelings and can even be charming. In fact, yes, exactly what you just said. You said it perfectly. Wait, I can't. I have to read this out loud because I couldn't make sense of it reading in my head. What if the Dateline report is correct that BK purchased the knife on Amazon? Vegetarian since 1978. Woo woo. I think it diminishes us to execute people, but we should give them the option to do it themselves. That's interesting. Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Okay. So Becky says to Rosie, I get this now. No 19-year-old says clad in black. I don't know. I'm going to have to ask my nieces. Oh, hey, it's Ara. Hey, Ara. How's it going, girl?
Hey there. I think I'm a little bit behind in the chat or like in the video. I don't know what's happening.
Okay. Me neither. That makes both of us.
No, but you were reading just some comments.
Oh,
right
I'm like 15 minutes behind. I mean, it's just like I always am because you guys are such great chatters. Go ahead.
Well, no, the chat has been really good. I was asking something earlier, and I hope it's probably going to be a stupid question, but you know why I'm going to ask this. That like all the appearances, you know, either he's in the orange and now in this one he's in the suit. I wonder if that's like done on purpose. And people in the chat were telling me, yes, they have the option to dress however they want. However, you know, you were commenting on how the attorneys were walking into the room with the smirks, and then Bryan Kohberger shows up in a suit and not in the orange jumpwear. So I wonder if that has anything to do with what they know, what they're planning to do, and if it alludes to what strategic or what tactics they're using.
So he was wearing a suit, at least in the last hearing that we saw him. So this was not the first time.
Right.
I know that you said you only filed this case on my channel. So
yes.
But so can you ask that a little more specifically?
I just wanted to get your opinion on the suit, but I correlated with, you know, how you spoke of the attorneys walking in and it bothered you. how they were
I just
walking in.
noticed it. Yeah, yeah.
No, I didn't even I would have never noticed that unless you brought it up. Like there is something that is going on. There's a game that's being played.
Oh yeah.
They feel like they have a one up.
They do, and I think that they want to exude that confidence. Now, I do have to say, I think that Ann Taylor, I mean, her record has shown that she is a successful, effective, kind of stealthy defense attorney, in my opinion, unless I'm missing something, and I could be, because sometimes I don't find everything, or I'm wrong, or whatever. Just let me know, and I'll correct myself. But, I think she deserves to have that air about her. But I just know, and I think they want to present a certain kind of swagger. Now, I was talking about in the video I uploaded earlier today that, both the defense and the prosecution have these ethical and literally legal obligations to, like in these court documents, they can't just, I said in the upload today is like Ann Taylor can't just make her wish list of what she wishes she had, because this would be the, ideal wish list to prove that her client is guilty, whether or not he is or is not. She has, when she files a motion, all of the assertions must be made on a good faith basis, or else sanctions, which is either a self-report or a court report to your licensing body, and it's just trouble. These are professionals who, as many of you know, I dropped out of law school on a full scholarship halfway through. I kick myself in the ass now for not following through that commitment. But I was like, my 22-year-old self was like, well, first of all, honestly, it was really fucking hard. Like I had a hard time with all the reading. I had a hard time focusing. I don't have sleuthy goosey detail orientation. It was difficult for me. It's like, why did they give me a full scholarship? They're nuts. But the bigger part of it was, well, I disclosed some other personal things with like 9/11 and stuff like that. But also, as far as the law school went, I was like, the more I learn about the law, the more I don't agree with the legal system. And I want to do something good with my life. And how can I do anything good in a system I don't even agree with? Where's my veggie burger? So anyhow, where was I going with that? Oh no, bring me back, Ara.
Well, we're just talking about nothing that really it's not about the case itself. I was just commenting on what you opened with today. So
yeah, so I think, okay, so they both sides obviously have these ethical and legal standards that they must abide by, or they're going to get in a lot of trouble. They are professionals. I know what I was talking about. It is really hard work to become a lawyer. Like really hard work and dedication. Anything that takes you that much schooling or that much commitment or whatever it is, it doesn't have to be schooling, and then that much practice and that much skill repetition.
It's
like
commitment.
we kind of
it's commitment.
Exactly. It's not easy. They're not going to put it all on the line just so they can, get a fast one, past the eyes of the public to, like subconsciously brainwash us in case we are a juror or because of the power. And I mean, I think there is some element of that to it, getting the message that they want out to the masses, to the public. They know the power of the media in the midst of this strict and broad gag order. The only thing that is being said about this case is not factual, but it's media driven. It is talk driven. It is YouTube driven. So they know we're going to, pounce on everything they say, but all of the assertions need to be made on a good faith basis. So I do believe that the attorneys here are professionals. And even when it seems like pomp and circumstance and some level of showmanship, I think if, at the core of it is truth, or they're putting their career on the line, and they're not going to do that.
And in this time, you said it well, and even in 2023 now, if more than ever, our lawyers, police officers, like they're aware that they're being watched. They can be fact checked. Anybody with a Google tab can check anything that you said, where you've lived, what you've done. That's kind of what's scary about the internet. So
yeah.
I don't know why I associate this with the OJ case. Like for some reason, I compare a lot of how it was handled. There are a lot of similarities between both cases.
That goddamn Mark Furman.
Well, but
Racist
also like
bastard.
the media frenzy and how the jurors went to the house and how the house was altered. if you recall, like OJ's house was
Mm-hmm.
changed to make it seem like he was a different way. I mean,
Right.
I don't know. I'm kind of like just speaking
Yeah.
in trails here at this
No,
point.
it's art. No, and I mean, and also just, the scene of the crime is, committed with a knife, kind of the gore of it, the details that we got in that regard. Yeah, no, I get that though. But I just want to play for people that maybe didn't see before, just what we were talking about when they just walked in. And I was explaining before, guys, and hi, Melissa Jade, how are you? And anybody else who just came in, welcome. Anyone watching the replay, welcome. I'm not doing this to be like, to not take, to not treat this with the respect and seriousness that it should. But I was playing it in slow motion earlier because when I saw them walking out, I watched it a few times, and in my brain, it was just like that. Like it needed some mojo music to it,
And I appreciate that you're like disclaiming it and saying that I'm not trying to be a bitch. Basically, you're trying to say, you're like,
yeah.
I'm not trying to be an asshole.
No.
But I'm giving you like an opinion that I have. I appreciate that about you. Something interesting that you said earlier, though, you said someone was considered a witness. I forgot, the name has left me. And you're like, a witness to what? And I'm remember that NK was considered a witness.
Right.
In the report, she was labeled as a witness. So
that's right, and she was a protected witness.
Correct.
Woohoo! My Canadian wildfire brain can't even go there right now. Okay, here they go. See, the way I saw, I was explaining earlier, I should turn that volume down. The way I just saw it was like, people almost like coming out on stage, and here's the person that plays, oh, bravo. This is just how, in my mind's eye, it all kind of played out. And, and then.
I agree with you. I'm getting the same thing from that. And he has this face like, we're gonna throw some shit down. Sorry.
No, he has a face like, I'm a creepy ass motherfucker.
Well, yes, but like in his mind, he's just like, we're gonna throw it down today.
Right, exactly. Yep. For sure. Yep. Creepy ass motherfucker. Yep. Kind of a little nose squeeze in there. So yeah. So that was what was up with that.
What's very interesting about this is this divide between people that like that believe that he is innocent and the people that think that he's completely guilty. It's interesting to see, or like the audience to kind of get their conclusions, like, because it's how you perceive the justice system. Essentially, what do you think of the justice system? If you're relying on what the prosecutors have come forward with, then you believe you have like a certain opinion of the justice system. If you're upset and don't believe that BK is guilty, then you have a different opinion of the justice system. Or I don't know what I'm trying to say, but it's interesting to see the conversation between both sides.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I totally agree. And I also think, unfortunately, I think in this instance, unfortunately, I think it also depends on like what YouTube channels you're watching, because I do feel that there's some bullshit pushers out there right now. I hate saying it, but
what did you say? Clicks and views?
Yeah, I hate saying for clicks and views, but that's what I mean. Just call a spade, seriously though. So, and now Sleuthy Goosey, I'm just sorry. I'm still like 20 minutes behind, but I just want to reiterate this point because it was kind of stunning to me. It clarifies to us it's a direct contradiction to what Mabbitt told me. I asked her twice if those were the only 4 individuals in attendance, which was Mabbitt, the doctor, Vargas, and Tolleson, and she said no one else, no FBI. She said, and you said no, and Sleuthy said no one else, no FBI, and Mabbitt said, my girl Cass said that's right. So Sleuthy then concludes, I think the defense knows more. Interesting.
Would it be possible they're just trying to poke holes? They're trying to poke holes in the prosecution, whatever prosecution is doing. All they have to do is create some sort of reasonable doubt.
Well, what she's specifically talking about there are the people that were in attendance at the autopsy.
Right.
So, okay, go ahead. Sorry about that. Okay, so you knew that. Gotcha.
What? Yeah, she was talking about that autopsy, and that's interesting. I have not seen the report, but
which the autopsy report?
Yes, or like
there is not one.
Or an article regarding that is what I meant.
One thing I do know though is my girl Kath. Hold it. Let me show you. And some people said they don't think this is a big deal. I think this is a big deal. Let me know what you think, Ara. I don't know if you watched the video I made on this, but so whoops, I gotta share it first. We are a potpourri of topics right now, which is all good.
I apologize. I didn't mean to make OJ like a thing.
No, it's fine.
We were talking about it.
Oh, it's fine. I don't want to talk about it personally, but
yeah, same.
Chat away.
No, I was just comparing, but
yeah, no comparison. Okay, so here is what there is of the coroner's report. Now in Idaho, autopsy reports and the details are protected in a certain way. I'm like, am I getting, gosh, it gets late but they are protected in a certain way. We don't have a lot of details, but what we do is the coroner's report here. And, it has Kath's name up there, all factual information. But at the bottom, it says, now the way I found this was I heard a few reporters say the manner of death, according to Latah County Coroner Kathy Mambut, the manner of death was stabbing. And it kept replaying in my head. I'm like, that's not a manner of death. And so I heard it enough times where, lo and behold, when you look into it, maybe I found it from Sleuthy Goosey. Who knows? I don't remember where I got the document from, but I verified in a couple places. It says at the bottom, it says cause of death, homicide, I always say that wrong, murder. And that's its manner of death, stabbing. So the cause of death would be like stabbing, but I've heard it would actually be called something else. And the manner of death in this case is homicide. So, like typographical error, whatever, but I'm sorry this is just how I feel about it. If you are the county coroner and something like this happens, I think part of being in an elected position like being county coroner is that you pay some level of respect and formality to the position and respect to the victims. And you get that shit right.
Okay. And I need to disclaim this. I need to add a disclaimer to the question I'm about to ask you, or maybe I should ask you this in person and not here on your live.
Okay, well, maybe put it in private chat if it's gonna if it's gonna make YouTube angry.
yeah, I know. I'm gonna type it in.
Okay, cool. Oh goodness. Oh. Yeah, right. Oh no. And I am in the mental health field as well. And so Cindy says, please everyone, I'm a mental health professional. Most of us went in to help people, not to harm anyone. So don't assume because we are in the field of mental health, we are in it for nefarious reasons. Oh, heck. I don't even know how that conversation came up, but that just caught my eye. And no, absolutely not. I think that there is a degree of, this is just human nature. Doctor heal thyself, people who get into the mental health field get into it because they are in some way, initially, I think maybe attracted to it because they're trying to heal themselves. There's nothing wrong with that. As long as at some point you make that professional distinction where you, shine a light of awareness on yourself. And I think that this is part of the work when you are studying in the field of psychology or getting into a mental health profession. There is, a portion of the training that you have to go through that invokes radical self-awareness so you can remove those biases that you entered into the field with because you were for personal reasons. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense.
It was part of my training, at least, and trainings I've conducted.
Well, it takes time. Also, I'm going into my 10th year of teaching. If we're going to
Yeah.
talk
Oh,
about
congratulations. That's wonderful. Thank you for being a teacher.
it is a milestone, I believe.
It is.
And it takes a while. You know, we call the new teachers, we call them being green. Like a teacher that is like has only like less than 2 years experience, that we consider them green. They don't know how to handle parents or situations or think ahead of future situations. You know, they're kind of just reacting to what's happening at the moment.
Yeah.
And so are we saying that at least one of the police officers was green?
Well, I did say that initially, but then somebody reminded me that he does have military training, and I do have a lot of respect and admiration for members of the military. So I don't even feel.
That doesn't mean that you Oh, sorry, I apologize for interrupting. But
Well,
it doesn't mean
I think that military training is pretty intense, and I think that it could contribute those hours that I thought he was lacking in law enforcement training.
But
I don't know enough to make
situations
a
are
statement.
different than military. I mean, they're like I was a lifeguard for a long time. Maybe I can use some of those skills to help me now with my teaching. But I mean, you're only going to get the experience from doing the thing that you're doing. Do you know what I'm saying?
I don't necessarily agree with that, because I think some of the skills certainly overlap, and some of them I think are transferable. And I think one of the big skills is to it is the discipline it takes for the training that you are receiving, and then the discipline it takes to execute your behavior in the face of intense stress and sometimes fear and terror, in accordance with your training. And I think that is a skill that can be exercised in law enforcement and in the military, that, where the hours are cumulative and not consecutive.
I understand, but like the situations that you're facing in either department are still different. Like the skills that you have to.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So let's see.
You're right. Yeah, I mean, and I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying. What I'm doing is basically just asking questions and having a conversation about it. But I'm not the smartest person in the room here.
None of us are.
Just giving some opinion. But your chat is awesome.
Chat is awesome. And MJ Max says, hi, Ara. Mike, I'm sure that Ahmad can drop the link if Kelly's no problem with it. Ara is great. Talking about Ara's channel, definitely. Drop a link to whatever you want. No, actually ask me first, because there's a few channels that I am not endorsing right now. So, but thank you, and I appreciate that. If it's Ara's channel, of course. Or Titanium Bell, or Sleuthy Goosey, or who else do we have here? I don't know. I'm sorry if I missed you.
Reese, thank you for serving. We appreciate your service.
Absolutely. Thank you. Adjusted Fate says there is no game with a suit. There's rules where the defendant can wear a suit when they're dressed in a jumpsuit once convicted. Yeah. So, that is, it was like I was talking about the Daryl Brooks case. I've been rewatching that because that judge, I'm in awe of that judge, Judge Darrow, who oversaw that case. He was sometimes in his orange, he was sometimes in a suit, but it creates an immense bias. If we are assuming that the potential jurors or the jurors, do not necessarily know that Bryan Kohberger is in custody, there's a good chance that many of them will, but maybe not. I mean, not everybody is aware of like true crime or national news or international news or whatever. So, a defendant has the right to shield from the jury the fact that they are in custody because of the, in my opinion, this is just my word, undeniable and unavoidable bias that it will present to jurors, whether they're conscious of it or not. So, it's time for him to wear a suit. He's approaching that trial phase. I think that was appropriate. I agree.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I do. I think about those little details, Miss Kelly.
Yeah.
I'm like, what is happening here? What's the look at?
Well, I think that I think that it probably was Ann Taylor that I instilled a degree of confidence in him, and his desire to present himself in a more confident way. I mean, I think that he has arrogance at his core, but arrogance and confidence are two different things. I think that Ann Taylor has the legitimacy and the actual solid foundation that took, assuming he's guilty and allegedly,
took his, arrogance up a level to having some degree of actual confidence. And I think that is what's being reflected in how he's being dressed, and plus his strategy.
Yeah. Nothing is by mistake.
Yeah. Yeah. Bryce Cooley says, I think the victims turned down Bryan Kohberger because they probably felt he was kind of handsome, but he has those creepy eyes. Kind of creepy looking. He has super creepy eyes. he has to me he has some like hallmark like physical facial traits of a a soulless person. Yeah,
the rest of that, did we listen to the whole thing? Because I have not heard that whole thing that you were just showing us. Did you show us the entire thing?
Let's see.
Is there more to it?
I think that is what they talked about as far as the issues of compelling discovery. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, let me make sure.
What was the ruling on that?
I think this was just the hearing.
Okay, I get you.
Yep. But why don't you tap dance for the viewers really quick while I check in on that?
Let me see. I'll check out your comment section. Identification cards. Someone's talking about identification cards. Public opinion seeps into the jury room, whether you want to admit it or not. Yeah. There's a reason the PR industry is a multi-billion-dollar a year industry.
That's right.
Wearing public opinion.
Well said.
Yeah. That's a really good comment, actually. Yeah, Mike.
Did you know, by the way, there's more documents dumped today? Oh my God, I can't keep up anymore.
It's just so much. I don't know how y'all keep track of it, honestly.
I thank God that I have a few weeks off. That's all I can say.
And you better enjoy that vacation now.
Yeah, I'm not. It's not really a vacation. It's a working vacation. I don't ever get to relax, unfortunately. It's not good.
Leanne says, I think the news speculated they could possibly belong to someone who lived at 1122 King Road. Don't think it's being debunked or confirmed.
What could belong?
What could belong? Yeah. MJ asks if you can do a poll to see where your audience stands. She does have a poll that's active right now.
I can wait. What kind of poll do we want? I can pull that down.
MJ asks where your audience stands, guilty or not guilty.
Oh yeah, sure. Let's do that. That's a good one. End poll. Okay, so what we have, by the way, says, do you think Bethany Funk actually has exculpatory evidence? With 260 votes, 57% of you said yes, and 43 said no. So my question now is going to be, do you think that Bryan Kohberger is guilty? Is that it?
Yes. And let me go. Can you do a poll to see where your audience stands, guilty/not guilty?
Okay.
Kohberger must be unhappy with the fancy college degree, $200K in debt. Oh, the ID cards found in a glove in a box is what Lean said.
I don't know.
I don't know about that.
I don't know about all that yet. Until it comes out as fact and discovery, I just can't yet. Okay, Mike, don't influence our potential jurors here, Mike. Careful. Do you believe that Bryan Kohberger is guilty? Yes or no? Okay.
I believe that the prosecution has a suspect and they're going to try that suspect, and the judicial system will ultimately decide whether they're guilty or not. I mean,
well, that's a matter of the judicial system. Like, I want to know what really happened in real life and how it affects the memory of the spirits of these victims and their families,
Yeah.
I think sometimes we get, I personally get stuck talking in all the details and the procedural stuff, but yeah.
You want to be so impartial sometimes when you're doing YouTube and doing a live that you almost lose yourself. You almost are afraid to say what you think because you want to be impartial and responsible. So I fall into that hole a lot of the time. Like, I'm afraid to actually say my opinion because I'm trying to give information in an impartial way and not swayed opinions. It's difficult.
It is difficult. It is difficult. Yeah, I think I used to, like, I know exactly what you're talking about, and I feel like, especially with the Watts case, I used to feel that way, but I've gotten to the oh fuck it point, and that doesn't mean that, you know, I still have to decide when I'm going to voice my opinion, and I pick my battles like you would with anything else.
Yeah.
Things I feel strongly about, like with the timeline of the morning when if people found out hours before the 911 calls, and I've explained why that's important. I'm close to those 2 fraternity students who are close with Hunter Chapin, the Chapin family, and they find it to be personally gut-wrenching, makes them vomit to think that people are out there saying that, you know, all these people knew hours before, which would have meant that these fraternity brothers knew hours before because they were around all of those other people that supposedly knew. They were like intermingled in the same communities. They were right there, like physically on the site. And Hunter Chapin and the Chapin family, to them, it implies that certainly Hunter Chapin would have known because it's freaking his triplet brother. And, you know, that implies that the fraternity brothers I'm in contact with, and Hunter Chapin, and, you know, whoever else feels this way, just sat on their ass and did nothing and did not contact law enforcement while Ethan and other people they cared about laid there dead or dying.
Well, I do believe he's guilty.
That's why it's important.
Yeah, and I do believe he's guilty. Like, I'm just going to say it. I do believe he's the guy.
Yeah.
I do. I mean, is he searching for an acquittal or like a mistrial or whatever? Maybe, but he's the guy. In my opinion.
Oh, yeah. I think he is too. Let's see. Oh, is T-Rev here? T-Rev was here. I miss so many people. Oh, my gosh.
You're one of the few channels that I know that has a following that it has that still tries to get to every comment.
I do. I
know people appreciate that.
Oh, good. I'm glad. Thank you. I'm good. I'm glad to hear that because I do think, you know, but we're about quality here.
Right.
I mean, this isn't a complaint. I think it definitely like can stunt the growth of your channel when you're giving every detail that much attention, but that's how I want to do things. So that's what's up. Let's see. I can voice. I see everything. It's only when I wait. Hi, Protected. How are you doing? So I sometimes I just can't read the comments in my head. I have to say them out loud. I have felt from the beginning things don't add up. So until I see everything is only when I can voice his guilt. Okay, well that's legit, you know.
That Mike said the coolest thing just now. He said you can't stay neutral on a moving train. That's true.
That's right. Yeah.
That's a really good point, dude.
That's right.
Yeah.
That is a very good point. Mike comes up with these good statements to stick with you.
I like them.
Yeah, I do too. Let's see.
So then I'm going to ask you, Ms. Kelly, like,
sure.
What are the details that are making people question his, like, the guilt? Is it a timeline situation or something?
They're making him believe he's innocent?
Yeah, well, yeah, because people say that he's innocent. Well, what is it about? What are the facts, or what are there some?
Oops, hold it. Can you hear me still?
Yes.
I got it. I'm going to be gone for about 20 seconds. I've just got to hit my computer off and on. It does this occasionally. I mean, I'm here. Stay right there, Ara.
I got you. Everyone, please hold. Miss Kelly is resetting. Just give us a second here. Pamela says, how can anyone believe he's the guy? I'm willing to admit he is, but right now, no way. I don't know. I'm just going off of the news.
So. All right. Let's see. Okay. All right. Oops. You there, little grasshopper?
Ma'am, yes.
Okay. So now here, I'm gonna give with the issue we were just talking about with, you know, sometimes losing your own voice and feeling like you can't, you know, voice your own opinion. Here, my little grasshopper YouTuber, I'm going to give you an example of a time when I am choosing, because you didn't ask me to present facts, so I don't have to worry about that. I am going to voice my actual true opinion, which I would not have done, like, let's say a year ago. So you asked, what is it that makes people believe
that he is innocent. Well, I think the people that are just, questioning and keeping open mind, or that are even leaning towards the fact that he's innocent. I think that, listen, I think there's tons of you out there that have put forth legitimate, fact-based or evidence-based, or what you believe are fact-based reasons that he is not guilty. But I think what I see more of is, I can't quite say it's a majority, but I am going to say it feels like the strongest wave with the most momentum, and kind of the loudest wave of people who are questioning his guilt, or more so the people who are like, Bryan Kohberger's innocent, Bryan Kohberger's innocent, are people who are attracted to this whole kind of counter movement, this kind of rebel, like kind of rage against the machine narrative that was, created by those same people, the clicks and views, people who know that there is a certain segment of human beings who follow true crime, who are really attracted to that and who connect strongly with that. And if you are the one who stands out as being that counter narrative, rage against the machine, like come hell or high water, even if I need to make up fake characters who are falsifying information,
oh God,
you're gonna grab those people and embrace them. And I honestly think
it's true
that a lot of the people who are like, Bryan Kohberger is guilty, I think that they're caught up. They're attracted to that, and they're caught up in that. And I'm not faulting them for that. And also, again, let me say, I think there are people that question his guilt, or that even, are saying, I think he's innocent, who are not that, and they have these legitimate reasons. But I think most of them all are just, they're caught up in the rage against the machine,
going against the grain.
Some YouTube channels are providing them at the expense of honesty.
I appreciate that answer. That came from the clinical psychologist.
Yeah, and that is my
Honestly.
true opinion. And that's when I don't need to talk about, timeline or facts or anything like that. So you want to know what I think? That's what I think, bitches.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. So thank you. Good question. Thank you.
That
for
is interesting,
asking.
though. Oh God.
I asked, what would Jesus do?
Mm.
Well, Jesus probably wouldn't murder 4 people. I'm
No,
sorry. That was really quick and witty.
You took the words out of my mouth, Maria.
Oh Lord, I'm sorry. I hope protected. I wasn't, that was witty. So Protected says, Maria, his answer is wait for the jury and due process. Yes. And that is also what, our forefathers would do too.
Yeah, it's going to happen.
That's when Jesus and Ben Franklin align.
Oh my goodness.
Princess Megan Elsa says, Ara Dollface, and hey, Princess Megan Elsa, how are you doing, sweetie? Aww.
The arrest affidavit is what convinced me BK was guilty. Yeah, like the first bits of information that I saw, because I did follow the case early on, but then it kind of got a little confusing.
Oh, got way freaking confusing.
Yes, and I honestly could not keep up with it because it was overwhelming. Yeah. But that arrest affidavit said a lot, and then like the DNA evidence that they said, how the DNA got on that sheath, it still ended up in that house, and it's Bryan's DNA. I mean, explain that as you will, but it is a fact. It was there. So how can you argue that?
I feel that way about it. And I also think, like, as I keep saying, 51 fucking terabytes, that's 300 million pages of printout, typewritten 12 font. 300 million. I mean, the Watts discovery was pretty thick. It was 2,000. 300 million. That's like rooms full of stacks and stacks. It's like, I can't remember. Somebody, I don't know. People have quantified this in all kinds of ways. But so that means, and a lot of that obviously is circumstantial evidence, because if it were hard fact, juggernaut linchpin evidence, we would have heard about it now. It would have been part of the probable cause affidavit, or it would have been talked about in these pretrial procedural court documents or something.
Right.
So of that 51,000 terabytes, 300 million pages, it's all information. It's not all evidence.
and there within that information resides the evidence, but
Mhm.
that information obviously has value or would not be part of this discovery. So much of it supports evidence. So knowing that most of that is circumstantial, I've got to say, guys, there is a fuckload of circumstantial evidence out there. And listen, we know very little about any of it. That is my personal belief, but that is what the facts that we know point to, in my opinion.
Exactly. And you guys have to also remember, and Miss Kelly, correct me if I'm wrong, that everybody, the both sides will receive the same information. They're going to get the same documents. They're going to get the same audio, video. It's all about interpretation. That's why they call it practicing law. You know,
Mhm.
so one lawyer can say what they want about the information and make you believe and give you an explanation for it. And then the other lawyer is going to give you something else with the same information. And remember the agenda of both sides, obviously. But as you were saying, I mean, it's here are the facts, and it's up to either side to do what they want with them and how to interpret both.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I also saw something that caught my eye in chat. So George Washington, thank you for this question. I really appreciate it. George Washington says, so you think that people that follow News Nation are more informed and more interested in justice? No, I don't. Just answer that clearly. Than those who follow small channels on true crime or question whether this person is guilty? Nope. You know what? And I thank you so much for that question, because I think what I just said a little bit ago absolutely could lead one to reasonably believe that what you're asking there is what I believe. So I think that no, I don't think that. I just think the way that I happen to see it is, you know, mainstream media like News Nation is like kind of going with this kind of like one popular sweep of the masses. And then there are some, you know, I don't know, like, you know, like friction fetish portion of the population who wants to go exactly against that. And the mainstream media is not going to do that, because at the end of the day, although we think there's this channel and this channel that are on different sides and represent different views, they're all in cahoots with one another, and they must support one another and not, you know, be obstacles for one another to a certain degree to make their, you know, self-interest work, right? So that, you know, kind of, you know, counterculture, Rage Against the Machine, is not going to be represented in mainstream media. So I'm just a YouTuber. I'm just a little tiny, don't know anything YouTuber. So I was, you know, just, I'm aware of some other YouTubers who are representing that counterculture side. That's all.
Miss
But thank
Kelly,
you.
may I address this comment before you take
Yeah.
it down?
Yeah.
As I'm reading it and you're having to explain yourself here, I feel like to be informed means watching news, but also if it's a subject that interests you, you're going to watch the news, yes. But then what's cool about YouTube is that you can go into channels and then have a conversation and have an open commentary. Like I believe that a lot of true crime channels are commentary like channels. Like they're talking about what just came out of the news. You know, and
well, I
that's
believe
okay.
you said you think to be informed means watching the news. I think to be informed means finding Sleuthy Goosey on YouTube and Twitter.
Yes, but at the same time, a person is responsible for the information they have. So watch this thing, even if you don't agree with it, so you can have a conversation about it elsewhere and be informed of everything that is being spoken. The conversation
That's
of
right.
all, you know, of all sides.
And then George Washington I amen to everything you said. George Washington also asks, what do you know about touch DNA, ladies? I will tell you, I know very little about touch DNA. And the only thing that I know about touch DNA is what I know about touch DNA from watching people being interviewed who are talking about it, doing research, hearing experts talk about how it works. So, you know, being somebody who has created a true crime channel, the focus of my channel has always been on where my area of expertise is, which is relationship dynamics, behavioral contributors to identifying when people or groups of people or families or individuals are in crisis, and also, you know, looking at, you know, our society as a whole
from this kind of psychology point of view, because that's usually where I come from. And then my other focus in the channel is also bringing in just how I was raised, coming from a family of attorneys and judges and people like that, with a high value on the importance of our justice system and each of our responsibilities as a citizen, I am, of the United States, being part of that justice system, regardless of how we feel about it at the moment. Hence the Ben Franklin quote I couldn't remember at the end of the last live stream. I had to actually look up, but it is that, our justice system, something I'm paraphrasing slightly, our justice system does not work if those who are unaffected are as passionate as those who are affected. And I so strongly believe in that. So those are kind of the two main components of this channel. It's the relationship and behavioral analysis part, and then it's our part. It's our responsibility as human beings to be part of our own society's justice system. And then also just a human fascination with true crime. This is a community where we can all come together. Do I claim to be an expert at all things that we touch on in true crime? Fucks to the nose. And I say that all the time. So that's what I know about Touch DNA. What about you, Aura?
Touch DNA is trace DNA, right? So they use Touch DNA to get the footprints because it's cellular, cellular testing or whatever. But just because they didn't find DNA in his car or what of the victims doesn't mean that he's innocent. Because because the argument is, well, there's no DNA in his car of the victims or wherever. Okay, and then what? He doesn't mean he's innocent. It just means that he did a really good job cleaning up, or maybe something else is happening that we don't know about, like behind the scenes, or there's information we don't know about. So
yeah, no, totally. And then, I don't know, to George Washington, let's talk, man. You are one of the forefathers I was just referencing. Come on, be my homeboy. Let's talk. What's your problem with me? So George Washington says to Cindy, will the host address your question? Fuck yeah, I will. Hi, Cindy. How is there only Touch DNA on that sheath and nowhere else, even in the, what does FHM mean?
I believe that the Touch DNA was used.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't wait. Just let me answer this, and I want you to answer it.
Yes,
I don't know how the Touch DNA is only on the sheath, because the only place that they identify it based on the probable cause affidavit and what we know so far, I do not know the answer to that, and I don't claim to know the answer to that. And something I say at least once or twice every live stream is, I've been wrong before, I'll be wrong again, and maybe I'm wrong now. And when I know I'm probably not wrong, I usually say, but I don't think I'm wrong right now.
Okay, well, right now I'm giving you a link.
Wait. Holding. So I don't know anything more about that, but I do want to reference all of us to 51 terabytes of discovery in the midst of a strict and broad gag order. So we don't know what's in there. So I cannot explain that. And yeah, I'll take any question. I don't care if it goes against my personal beliefs. That's I freaking live for that stuff. Challenge it. That's how we get places. Go ahead, R. I'm sorry.
No, I was just giving you a link because, if someone's asking you something or me, and I don't know, I try to search it, but I'm trying to help you right now. I'm giving you a link about Touch DNA in the private chat. Maybe that wasn't the best link. If you want to talk about it, I know you've been up late.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I do. But go ahead. What are you throwing out there?
No, I was just giving you a link because somebody asked, what does your panelists know about Touch DNA? As much as you will know, or not you, Kelly, but the person that asked this, if you Google it, I will know as much as the person that asked that. I will Google it and read it and then learn, But the Touch DNA, okay, so someone in the chat says Touch DNA on the sheet only is just a big one. Oh, that was George.
Okay. Oh, yeah. So, I mean, do you know, maybe George actually has some expertise or something. Is there something you want to say about these? I'm asking totally seriously. Or do you have any expert knowledge or specific knowledge, or is there any point you want to make about that? Because you're welcome to any of that.
To George?
Yeah.
Yeah, George, you're welcome.
Yeah. Wow. That's crazy. Okay.
If this crime was planned, then he's going to account for any time his DNA might be left somewhere. You know, because he's a criminal. I think I'm really hard on him because he studied law, so he would have an understanding of the system, right, and like evidence and all that. So I think it's pretty perfect. If it is him, it's perfect that there's nothing left behind. And what really got him was it those pings and the sheath, like he left it there, but not purposely. Obviously, it fell off him, maybe.
Right. Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, guys, aside from the sheath, the circumstantial evidence that we know about, and I am telling you, I keep maintaining this, and I don't know because I don't know, but I have a pretty strong inkling with what I do know about cellular technology, and specifically cell signal versus GPS versus HE. You know, we went through all that in the Watts case, and I used to work in that industry. For those of you who don't know, I'm not going to get into the whole resume right now. You'll bore you to pieces. But I based on what we do see of the evidence that we do know about, I would bet the ranch that there's going to be 2 mobile devices at play. And I can also see that they were able to track at least one of those mobile devices using AGPS technology, which is remarkably, ridiculously precise in both the space and time continuum. So they have that. Well, you can't say his because your phone is not attached to your person, but they have that phone's movements tracked from moment to moment for large periods of time that are critical to the theory of Kohberger being at the house, stalking the house, creeping the house, whatever it is prior to the crime being committed.
So you're saying that he had 2 devices, like 2 phones?
Yes.
And one of them maybe have been a burner phone?
Perhaps. I can't. I don't know.
That's an interesting theory.
That.
But it would be, right? I mean, because everything else would be under your name.
I'm not saying that the one wasn't under his name. It gets, and it was my friend, my friend I've talked to you about, Marco, that I used to work with. And so I was talking to him about it because there was just something that to me triggered like that, but I don't know enough to know exactly what I'm looking at. So he agreed that there's definitely 2 mobile devices, and I'm not sure about the burner phone. That'll be our next conversation. I can't tell that. Don't know enough about it.
I'm gonna jump down and kind of hang out in your chat.
Okay. Cool. Well, thank you so much, Art, for coming up. I really appreciate you.
Sure.
Yeah, I appreciate you so very much. And everybody, if you haven't yet, go check out Art's channel. And I think I'm going to be wrapping up soon. So I don't know if are you going to do an after party?
Well, I cannot do it on Bryan. I'm not as well versed as you are.
Oh, okay. Well, whatever you want to do. So sometimes I'll do something after. I don't know are you going to do that tonight?
I may go live later, but I don't.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So please put the link out to her channel. Anyone who is able to right now, or you yourself are, you can go ahead and do that. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Miss Kelly. I love you,
honey.
Keep working hard. We all love you.
Thank you. Thank
Bye.
you too, dear. Okay. So Rosie says, protected. I think the dateline stated about the bleach, and hopefully they had it well confirmed. I think Dateline did say about the bleach. Now, I know that I did hear the bleach prior to that, and I did feel like, and this is, I don't know, I haven't like double checked this or anything. I did feel like it was shortly after we found out that Kohberger was arrested over here in Pennsylvania, just 50 miles from where I sit right now. Let's figure that out, though, as a collective. I'm not sure. I want to know if that's actually verified truth or not. Because Dateline, I don't put my stock in them anymore. George Washington said they started a new channel because of it, the Presumption Podcast with defense attorneys Sarah Azari and Jim Griffin. Oh, awesome. With guests that specializes in touch DNA, CC Moore. Yes, she's terrific. That was the person whose name I was thinking of earlier. Thank you so much, George Washington. Yeah, she is apparently, from what I understand, because I don't know much about it, the foremost expert in touch DNA and the investigative genealogical DNA. I've got to look this up to make sure I'm telling you the right thing. She's fantastic. She is super knowledgeable, and thank you for that. What's it called? I'll tell you in a minute. Yep, this is her. So, yep, she is the DNA detective. Yeah. Well, you know what? Hey, let's listen to, here's a little clip of CeCe Moore on Megyn Kelly. So thank you so much, George Washington. Great tip. And what did he say that channel was? It's the Presumption Podcast with defense attorneys Sarah Azari, who I love, and Jim Griffin, also awesome, with guests that specializes in touch DNA, CeCe Moore. Go watch it. Last episode on that subject. Since it sounds like that's a smaller channel, and I would totally play a little clip of them to give them a plug. Everybody, I think this sounds like a great channel. I'm going to go subscribe in a minute, but I don't have their permission to use any of their video. So I'm going to use Megyn Kelly's part of her video because she's a huge person, channel, institution, whatever she is. But CeCe Moore is speaking with Megyn Kelly on, I don't even know what channel she's on now. I'm just making sure everything's all good. Thank you, everybody, for being awesome in chat. I really appreciate it. Are you okay, Protected? Okay, so anyway, I'm just going to share this with you, and we can hear. I'm so glad that George Washington said that. All right, so here is CeCe Moore. She is, I was trying to think of her name earlier. I could not think of it for the life of me. I knew it was CeCe something or other. Okay.
This case in Pennsylvania. You recently solved this case as of July of 2022. Let's go back before that, though, to 1975, when the murder of then 19-year-old Lindy Sue Beechler took place. She was stabbed to death 19 times in her apartment on December 5th, 1975. She was found lying on her back with a knife sticking out of her neck.
Aww.
Decades went by without an arrest in the gruesome crime. They had no idea. Police were not able to solve this. As I understand it, it happened in Pennsylvania, and it was just a cold case. So you got involved in this. How did you get involved in this all these years later?
Well, Lancaster Police had worked with Parabon before I even joined forces with them to create this investigative genetic genealogy service. So they had an established relationship with them. So when I came on board, they asked Lancaster Police if we could perform genetic genealogy first on the Christy Mirak case, which they had done a phenotype for. And so we uploaded that to GEDmatch. And on that case, right away, we had good matches for me to work with. Now, when I became really familiar with that case, I learned that Christy's brother and Lindy Sue's brother had taken out billboards together asking for tips on their sisters. And so I was able to help law enforcement solve Christy Mirak's case way back in 2018. It was one of my very first ones. But I felt like Lindy Sue's case was hanging over my head for years because I really felt that they both needed to be solved. They were sort of like sister cases to me, even though they were so many years apart. And I wanted Lindy Sue's family and brother to have those answers as well, like Christy's family finally did. But when we performed the analysis on that crime scene DNA and uploaded it to GEDmatch, there were no good matches. They were all very, very, very distant. So we recommended they upload to Family Tree DNA as well, the second database. Again, no good matches. And I was just so disappointed because I so desperately wanted to help law enforcement identify her killer as well.
Okay, so then what'd you do?
Well, because we didn't have any close matches. So the closest match we had only shared 30 centimorgans. 30 centimorgans can be a false match even. That's so distant. It could be a 10th cousin. but I was determined to try to help on this case. So just behind the scenes, without even telling the law enforcement agency I was doing it, I started building trees of these really distant matches. And instead of
How far
being able,
back?
I have to tell you something really interesting about her. So, this her being a genetic genealogist, as she calls herself, or as they call her, she really is an expert at what she does, is her third career, and she has no degrees or certifications in, anything science. She just figured out how to do this. I think it's amazing. I just think it's really amazing. I don't know if you guys want to do you want to keep watching that or not? It doesn't have to, I wasn't sure if it was going to have to do with this case or not, but it's amazing. Okay, good. Protected. I want to make sure. Megan Claus thinks Santa Claus is white. That vaguely rings a bell. Rosie, I get what you're saying about Sarah Zari, but you know what? I think she does her job with fervor. I think she's just trying to be a damn good defense attorney, She ended up being wrong because Murdoch was guilty, in my opinion, but Anaphylaxis agrees with you. Oh, I'm not sure. Is that what you agree with? I don't know. But yeah. She basically invented this whole genetic genealogy investigative tool. Super amazing. Yeah. Oh, that's right. Megyn Kelly is the one who slandered Donald. Oh no, that's not what I meant. I thought that he was an asshole to her. I don't want to talk about politics though. Anyway, let's take Megyn Kelly down. She seems to be polarizing. All right. So, all right. Oh, good. Awesome. Yeah. Start winding down for sure. So I have to start winding down also. Oh, I never read Ara's private chat. I'm sorry, Ara. Oh, interesting. Huh. It's interesting, Ara. Yeah. I didn't realize that was how it all went down. Okay, cool. So, all right, guys. So I do have to get going. It's getting super late, but thank you so much for being here. Ara, thank you for coming up. I really appreciate it. Everybody, moderators, thank you so much. You are so amazing. I'm so grateful for you guys. Everybody in chat, you contributed so much. I really appreciate it. And I respect your opinion, regardless of what it is or why it is. It's all good. And thank you for respecting that sometimes I gotta state mine. Oops. Yes. Oh, yes. Please do on the way out, hit like and subscribe. And to become a member, yeah. I mean, yeah. So, okay, guys. I am super tired, but thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. I'll be doing another live stream soon because I have a couple weeks off. And yeah. I think you're all a really important part of the process, and I am grateful for all of you. And let's always remember what we are ultimately all about. I do believe, and I hope, that's what this channel is about, is finding justice for the victims and peace for the families.
Okay, so I'm actually back because I forgot. Thank you guys who are reading out the poll. I forgot to cover that. So the poll was, I don't know if you guys can see that or not. And I think you can see it in the chat, right? So it's, do you believe that Bryan Kohberger is guilty? That was a question. And 56, the choices were yes, no, no effing clue. And the results were yes, 56%, no, 24%. And no effing clue, 19%. Mike, what did you say was the results in Drunk Turkey Show? I'm just interested because just like the different audiences, perhaps. Yeah, awesome, good. Mike just up to R. That's great. So, all right. Well, everybody, thank you so much for being here. Please stay safe. And I appreciate all of you guys and have a really great night. I'll probably see you Thursday night. I'm shooting for Thursday or Friday, probably Thursday. Okay. Take care, guys.